Chapter 3683. Children and grandchildren around the knees, relatives by his side. There are no more cruel and unreasonable family rules. Ning Zhongbai opens his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something. But when the words are on the tip of his tongue, the light in his eyes dimmed a little. His face shows a painful expression, gently shaking his head. No, I can't leave the Ning family, I swore. Father. Ning Yu is about to faint from anger at her silly and sweet father. What is there in the Ning family that you are reluctant to part with? Ning Zhongbai is about to speak. Then she hears Ning Kunshin chuckle, slowly walking forward with the help of the Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutches. Two girls, if you want to leave the Ning family, shouldn't you ask this ancestor's opinion first? Ning Yu sneers, about to speak. Unexpectedly, Ning Kunshin suddenly makes a move at this time. Ning Yu is simply stunned. An old man at the third stage of profound immortal, facing two juniors whose cultivation is far below his own, actually resorted to such a shameless sneak attack. She didn't expect this, so much so that she had no time to react. Although Mayan is also shocked, she has been on guard. So almost at the same time as Ning Kunshin makes his move, 7 absolute swords have already been unsheathed. Clang! The Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutches and 7 absolute swords collide, creating sparks. Mayan's face changes greatly, because from the beginning, Ning Kunshin's target wasn't her and Ning Yu, but a feint to lock Ning Zhongbai. Boom! Ning Zhongbai, whose cultivation is low, is blown away. You can almost hear the sound of his bones breaking. Blood sprays in the air. Father! Ning Yu lets out a mournful scream, rushing out to save him. But Ning Fuxing, who has been waiting there for a long time, waves his hand. Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jinwu step forward, grabbing Ning Zhongbai from both sides. His deadwood-like fingers turn into claws, tightly locking Ning Zhongbai's neck. Ning Fuxing snaps. Ning Yu Junmayan, immediately surrender, otherwise don't blame me for being ruthless. Ning Yu's body shakes violently. Her eyes are red, staring at the man in front of her. Her angry voice is hoarse and trembling. Ning Fuxing, this is your son. He's your biological son. You want to kill your own son with your own hands? Are you even human? Ning Fuxing's face was expressionless, and there was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. 20 years ago, when he betrayed the Ning family and tried to release that demon, Jun Xiwen, he should have died. It was the old ancestor who pleaded on his behalf. That was why he was spared his life. Now that he's returning his life to the ancestor, it's just the ending he deserves. In Ning Jiangwen's hands, Ning Zhongbai's face was drained of all color, and he couldn't even stand properly. His eyes were unfocused, and he exhaled more than he inhaled. It was obvious that his life was on the line. Ning Yu was so angry that her whole body trembled, and tears fell from her eyes uncontrollably. Only now did she realize how naive she had been. She had thought that her grandfather was just too old-fashioned and strict, placing too much importance on the honor and responsibility of the family. However, he still had some feelings for his family members. However, it turned out that in Ning Fuxing's eyes, she and her father were nothing. As long as it was for the Ning family, for the old ancestor, Ning Fuxing would not hesitate to let his son and granddaughter die, just like how he could sacrifice his most beloved daughter without blinking an eye. Chapter 3684. Ning Fuxing sees the golden crow fire essence quietly flying towards Mayan. He suddenly raises his hand and punches Ning Zhongbai's abdomen. This punch contains powerful spiritual power. Ning Zhongbai's already dying body spits out another mouthful of blood, completely losing consciousness. Looking at Ning Zhongbai's face that is beginning to be shrouded in death, Mayan's face changes and she snaps. We give up resisting. Don't hurt second uncle. She throws the 7 absolutes sword on the ground without hesitation. Ning Yu closes her eyes, grits her teeth, and also throws the weapon in her hand on the ground. Ning Kunshin looks at Mayan with a smile. Girl, if I remember correctly, you should still have a zither. Mayan gives him an indifferent look. She takes out the Tian Mo Chin and also throws it on the ground. Ning Kunshin's gaze unconsciously drifts to the Tian Mo Chin, and his eyes darken. He doesn't know why. It's clearly just a very unremarkable zither. But when he looks at it carefully, it makes him tremble with fear. Moreover, he vaguely feels that he seems to have seen this zither somewhere before. Show this gu the zither. In Yuani's arrogant voice comes from behind, interrupting Ning Kunshin's thoughts. Ning Kunshin comes back to his senses, revealing a gentle smile, and says to a servant of the Ning family, "Young Master Yin said that he wants to see the zither. What are you waiting for? Quickly bring it over." The Ning family's servant quickly brings the Tian Mo Chin to In Yuani. In Yuani casually fiddles with it. He finds that it's impossible to play this famous Tian Mo Chin in the three realms without being a descendant of the Shun musician. He can't help but raise his head and look at the girl not far away, just in time to meet her line of sight. After the baptism of battle, the pair of peach blossom eyes that are already rippling like water become brighter and more seductive. In Yuani only feels a burst of excitement, and his mouth is dry. He can't wait to enjoy this woman. On the other side, Ning Kunshin looks at Mayan with a pair of kind eyes and says warmly, "Do you have anything else to say?" Mu Yin hooks up her lips and slowly says, "You previously said that through the sacrifices of the Ning family one after another, the curse that the palace master of Magic Illusion Palace left for the Ning family has already been dispelled bit by bit. Now it seems that the situation is clearly the opposite." Ning Kunshin narrowed his eyes slightly, and his expression became a little dangerous. The smile on Mu Yan's face deepens. "Perhaps I should say this. It's not that the Ning family situation is very bad. It's that your situation is very bad, right?" His old, rotten body could no longer accommodate an ambitious and selfish soul. Even if you use the lives of so many descendants of the Ning family to pay for it, you are getting closer and closer to the abyss of death. What's that curse called again? Oh, that's right, the Yuan Destruction Devil Soul Curse. Upon reaching the Xian immortal level, one would age and die. Right now, the rise and fall of the Ning family is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you, an old monster, can no longer hold on. That's why he humbly asked for help from the Netherworld realm. He even had to do such a shameless thing as picking up his granddaughter, whom he had barely raised for a day, and giving her away as a gift. Old ancestor of the Ning family, am I right? The gentle and kind smile on Ning Kunshin's face finally faded completely, turning into a frightening malevolence and ruthlessness. Jun Mayan. He slowly raised a Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutch. Chapter 3685. You're a devil, just like your father Jun Shiyuan. All the demons should die. I'll spare your life so that you can contribute to the Ning family and forgive your father. What's wrong with that? Boom! The crutch directly hits Mu Yan's dantian. Within the Mandarin duck ghost mask, the Yama takes his life, once again shot out. However, at this time, a ball of golden crow fire essence flies over and blocks in front of Mu Yan and is hit by the killing Yama. Golden Crow. Mu Yan is startled and quickly reaches out to catch the fireball. The Golden Crow fire essence is very powerful. On the entire floating island, those that can subdue it can be counted on one's fingers. But after signing the contract with Mu Yan, its strength will change according to its master's strength and weakness. In other words, Mu Yan is only at the Earth opening realm, so the enemies it can fight against will not be much stronger. On the contrary, if Mu Yan becomes stronger and stronger, the Golden Crow fire essence's strength will also increase, even surpassing its peak in the end. The current Golden Crow fire essence is still too weak against Ning Kunshin. The Xian Immortal's energy breaks through the defense. The killing Yama burrows into the fire essence like a maggot in a tarsal bone. A mournful scream comes from the fireball, but Ning Kunshin's hand is also burned by the Golden Crow fire. He retreats several steps and uses his immortal energy to gradually extinguish the flames. Mu Yan looks at the small fireball lying in her palm. Her heart is filled with mixed feelings. Unlike the other little guys, Jin Wu doesn't follow her willingly. Usually, he would look at her and the other little fellows with disdain. This time, facing a crisis. Qi Huang can't appear in front of people. The little phoenix is still a young bird and doesn't have much fighting power. The fat rabbit and Bai Xie are both guarding Xiaobao. Mu Yin thought that she will have to fight alone today. But Jin Wu flies out of the space. Now, in order to save her, it is corroded by the killing Yama. The fire energy in its body is lost by more than half, and it is seriously injured. The always arrogant and cunning one eye has completely lost its luster. It droops listlessly and looks at Mu Yan from time to time. A vague consciousness intermittently enters Mu Yan's mind. I didn't steal on purpose. I didn't lie on purpose. You have to feed me a lot of fire spirit source in the future. The roller coaster is taking me along. That damned rabbit and stinky sword can't bully me. I, Golden Crow, am the hero who saved my master. Originally, Mu Yan's heart was filled with emotion and sorrow. Hearing these voices in her mind, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She gently touched the Golden Crow and injected some fire spiritual power into the small fireball. Good, you are a great hero. No one can bully you in the future. Without the blessing of the Shun musician skill, a single spark makes a great fire. Fire spiritual power is just fire spiritual power. It was like plain, tasteless water. The Golden Crow protested a few times, but it still absorbed them all. Suddenly, Mu Yan's face changes. He quickly put the Golden Crow back into his spatial ring before he turned around and struck out with his palm. She was met with a palm that was as withered as a corpse's. Almost at the moment when their spiritual powers collided, Mu Yan felt the spiritual power within her body being continuously swallowed by the other party. She tried to retreat. However, there seemed to be a huge vortex in that withered palm. It held her firmly in place, and even the strength in her body disappeared bit by bit. Chapter 3686. Mu Yan. Ningyu screamed and wanted to rush over to save her. But two whips immediately lashed at her. They blocked her way. They were Ning Jiangwen and Ning Jianwu. They had received Ning Fuxing's order to kill Ningyu. Time went by. As the spiritual power in her body was drained, Mu Yan's face was pale. She couldn't hold on any longer and fell down softly. Ning Kunshin withdrew his hand and took a deep breath. His face showed an incomparably happy expression. Girl, your spirit root is even purer than your mother's yin X science. There seemed to be a flash of regret in his eyes. He said in a low voice that others couldn't hear, "It's a pity to give such a peerless beauty away, to be a favored concubine. But everything is for the future of the Ning family." He lifted the Rakshasa Mandarin duck crutch and stabbed it at Mu Yan's dantian. However, at this moment, In Yuni finally spoke. "Wait a minute." He slowly walked down the steps in front of the Chuya Palace. The corners of his mouth hold a lofty smile as he arrives in front of Mayan, looking down at her. "Woman, you should know very well that I am the only one who can save you now." He slowly squatted down. With a burning finger, he clasped Mu Yan's chin and forced her to come closer to him. His fingertips touched the girl's delicate skin. In Yuani's heart swayed again. He could hardly suppress the burning desire in his eyes. He said in a slightly hoarse voice, word by word, beg me to pamper you, and I will let you and the others live. How about it?" Mu Yan's face was pale because of the exhaustion of spiritual power. However, those peach blossom eyes became more and more translucent, as if they were twinkling stars in the pitch-black night sky. In Yuani's breathing was slightly heavy. Holding the girl's soft and delicate chin, he slowly bent down, wanting to kiss her first. No, why was it just a kiss? So what if he directly took her in front of everyone? He was the young master of the Nether Realm. When the world didn't belong to him. However, he hadn't tasted the girl's fragrance. A sharp pain came from his abdomen. In Yuani snorted and flung Mu Yan away. Inch by inch, his face turned pale. He lowered his head and looked at his stomach in disbelief. Unbeknownst to him, a sparkling and translucent long sword had appeared there, directly piercing through his dantian. Young master, are you okay?" Yin Laji and the guards were scared out of their wits, and they rushed over in a panic. At the side, Ning Kunshin's expression also changed drastically. His eyes were filled with terror. He's sure that the spiritual power within Mayan's body was completely devoured by him just now. This girl definitely didn't have the slightest bit of lethality right now. But why? How could she still injure young Master Yin? At the thought of Yin Yuani's death on the floating island in the Ning family, Ning Kunshin felt like the world was falling apart. He looks at Mayan with malevolence and resentment in his eyes. Mayan slightly gasps for breath. She quickly revolves her dantian to restore her spiritual power while supporting herself with the help of Blackwood to slowly stand up. Ning Kunshin's evil technique had indeed drained all the spiritual power in her body. If it was someone else, they would not be able to fight back at all. They became like mortals, waiting to be trampled upon. But Mayan was different. In addition to spiritual power, she also had mysterious energy and immortal energy. Although, with her current cultivation, she couldn't use much immortal energy. Chapter 3687. But it's enough to summon the natal sword to attack. You're crazy. You're really crazy, bitch. Yenleji screams, almost hysterically. How dare you hurt the lord of the nether realm? Young master, how are you? Yenleji almost cries. On the contrary, the guard leader is relieved after checking Yin Yuani's condition. With Yin Yuani's current cultivation, even if he was attacked by surprise, how could he be hurt by a little golden immortal? Yin Yuani shakes off Yenleji, who comes to help him. His face is distorted, and he rushes towards Mu Yin like a demon. Yin Yuani, who has never been so humiliated and frightened, is about to go crazy. The pressure of the Immortal King is released without reservation. Mu Yan's face, which has just recovered a little, suddenly loses all color. The Tian Mo Qin, which has been floating in the air and flying towards her, also falls to the ground. Yin Yuani clasps her neck. He reaches out and pulls it hard. Her outer clothes are torn to pieces. Bitch, I gave you face, but you don't want it. This young master is a little lenient to you, and you think you're something? A lowly thing like you. This young master can play with it however he wants. In public, this young master will let everyone have a good look at your lowly appearance. Muyan suddenly bites her lower lip. Blood oozes from her pale lips. She is not suppressing her anger and hatred, but suppressing Qi Huang, who wants to rush out of the space. No, not yet. Qi Huang must not be exposed until she is in a desperate situation. The remaining immortal power in her dantian surges. Mu Yin wields the seven absolutes sword to stab Yin Yuani. But this time, Yin Yuani is prepared. He raises his hand, and a black flame bursts out of his palm. The spark burns Mu Yan's wrist. A wave of heart-wrenching pain followed. Tears fall uncontrollably from her eyes. The hand holding the seven absolutes sword no longer has any strength, and she can only let the remaining weapon fall. Yin Yuani slaps her weapon. He raises his hand and slaps her in the face. He had already made up his mind to make this bitch, who didn't know what was good for her, beg for death. He wanted to see her crawling at his feet, crying and begging him to pamper her. However, before the slap could land, a voice rang out. Yin Yuani felt dizzy. Then, accompanied by a loud bang, he was sent flying and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Mayan is being tortured by the dark Yin sacred flame, to the point where she wishes she was dead. That kind of pain was not physical pain. Even his soul was being burned over and over again. She felt as if all the strength and warmth in her body were being sucked away bit by bit. He didn't even realize what had just happened. She felt as if she had been pulled into a somewhat familiar, yet somewhat strange embrace. The cool bamboo fragrance, accompanied by uncontrollable trembling, passed to her through her thin clothes. Mayan absent-mindedly opens her eyes. She could vaguely see a handsome face. That pair of eyes that were as black as ink had always been calm and indifferent, like an ancient well without ripples. But at this moment, he couldn't suppress his panic and heartache. Mu Yin blinked lightly and called out in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Uncle?" Luo Yinshao closes his eyes. The hand hanging at his side is clenched into a fist until his nails are deeply embedded in his palm. Blood drips. He can use that little bit of pain to force his surging, killing intent to calm down and stop the trembling of his body. Chapter 3688. Luo Yunxiao lets go of Mu Yan's hand, takes out some clothes from the storage space, and puts them on her. His slender, jade-like hand clasps Mu Yan's wrist and pulls it to his heart. He uses almost all his strength to suppress the hoarseness and trembling in his voice. He says softly, "I will expel the dark, unholy flame from your body. The process will be a little painful. Bear with it." Mu Yan's rationality returned slightly. She allowed Luo Yunxiao to hold her hand, and then a pure energy drilled into her body. Mu Yan recognizes that this is divine power. It is different from Di Ming Ju's divine power, which is like a vast blue sky. Luo Yunxiao's divine power is like a vast ocean of ice, bone-chilling. But at this moment, it is just enough to extinguish the dark, unholy flame in Mu Yan's body. The process of expelling the dark, unholy flame is indeed very painful. But Mu Yan has endured all kinds of inhuman torture in her 2 lives. This bit of pain was nothing to her. "Young lord, are you all right?" Yin Yuanyi is supported by a guard, struggling to get up from the ground. Seeing Luo Yunxiao, who is helping Mu Yan expel the dark, unholy flame, there is a look of disbelief on his face. Even Yin Leji's eyes widened as he stammered, "Young master, isn't that the first prince? Why is he here?" Suddenly, a light flashes in his mind. "Young lord, could it be that the woman that his highness likes is this Junmayan that the Ning family wants to offer to you?" Yin Yuanyi's eyelids suddenly jump. His eyes are fixed on Luo Yunxiao, who is helping Mu Yan expel the dark, unholy flame. More than half of the illumination crystals above the Ning family's underground palace have been destroyed by the Golden Crow fire essence. The light around the entire Chuya palace has become a little dim. Plus the fight just now. Grass and leaves are flying, sand and dust are flying. It caused the surrounding vision to become unclear and hazy, as if it was covered by a layer of gray fog. But even in such a dim light, Luo Yunxiao's face and expression are clearly reflected in Yin Yuanyi's eyes. The young man had a face that could turn all living things upside down and drive all women crazy. The maids of the Ning family, who had shown reverence and shyness to Yin Yuanyi just a moment ago, were stunned. In the bitter battle just now, everyone was already in a state of panic, and they couldn't care about the romantic feelings in their hearts any longer. But when Luo Yunxiao appeared, these womenfolk of the Ning family even forgot their fear and panic. Each and every one of them stared at him in a daze. Their eyes were watery, and their faces were bashful and absent-minded. He had actually completely forgotten about him, the true young master of the Nether Realm. Every time Yin Yuanyi saw Luo Yunxiao's face, he couldn't help gnashing his teeth with hatred. Ever since he was young, he was obviously more favored by his father and the people behind the scenes. He was clearly the publicly acknowledged successor of the Nether Realm. However, the servants always favored Luo Yunxiao in private. Those young girls, no matter how much respect they showed him on the surface, his eyes were filled with adoration and infatuation. They were always directed at Luo Yunxiao. These people thought that they were being secretive. But how could Yin Yuanyi not know? His hatred towards Luo Yunxiao accumulated little by little, to the point of madness. He didn't hesitate to send these servants who loved Luo Yunxiao to hell. Let them beg for death, but be unable to. He, Luo Yunxiao, that bastard, also crawled back from hell anyway. Chapter 3689. Dirty, dark, disgusting. Even Imperial Father and Imperial Mother feared him. Since these servants liked to accompany him so much, they should stay in this miserable hell and never be reincarnated. Yin Wuji and Fu Yushu obviously knew what he had done, but Yin Wuji chose to ignore it. Fu Yushu tried to persuade him, but after Yin Yuanyi cried that Luo Yunxiao had ordered the servants to harm him, he didn't say anything else. So all the servants and officials of the Nether Realm knew about it. There was no future for them to be nice to Luo Yunxiao, the First Highness. They might even die a horrible death and implicate their whole families. Then, gradually, no one dared to help Luo Yunxiao anymore. No one would show an infatuated look at Luo Yunxiao's face. The First Highness of the Nether Realm became a taboo. Everyone treated him as if he didn't exist and even hated him. Yin Yuanyi only felt comfortable. Later, Luo Yunxiao ignited the dark Yin Holy Flame and obtained the inheritance of the Nether Holy Spirit. He even became the fiancé of the Demon Princess. Yin Yuanyi didn't panic or resent it, because he knew clearly that what if Luo Yunxiao got all this? As long as Yin Yuanyi wanted it, Luo Yunxiao must spit out everything and give it all to him. Thinking of this, Yin Yuanyi took a deep breath. Because he saw the attention and love of others for Luo Yunxiao, his twisted face gradually returned to normal. The corners of his mouth even curled up into a horrifying arc. Go, bring that woman to this young master. Yin Yuanyi winked at the leader of his guards. The leader of the guards showed a little hesitation on his face. They were very clear about the strength of the First Highness. If he really wanted to go against the young master, he, a peak Xian immortal, might not be a match for the First Highness. Seeing the hesitation of the leader of the guards, Yin Yuanyi was furious. Didn't you hear my order? Are you still afraid of that trash Luo Yunxiao? Oh, do you think Luo Yunxiao has the guts to refuse the woman I want? The leader of the guards didn't have time to speak. Yin Leji immediately smiled flatteringly and said, Young master, there's no need to trouble Lord Jiang. I'll go and bring them over for you. As he spoke, he flashed a fawning smile at the leader of the guards. Yin Yuanyi's anger turned into joy. Yin Leji immediately strode toward the two people who were sitting cross-legged. The expulsion of the dark Yin Holy Flame had reached a critical moment. This can be seen from the black flame mark that flashes from time to time between Mayan's eyebrows. Yin Leji didn't care about that. He goes to Mayan's side and says with a bit of disdain and carelessness, Your Highness, I'm sorry. Our young master has taken a fancy to this Miss June Mayan. The Ning family has already offered her to our young master, and young master has decided to take her as a concubine. Now, young master has ordered me to bring her to his side. After all, it is improper for men and women to touch each other. His First Highness's attitude towards young master's beloved concubine is so ambiguous and intimate. If word of this gets out, it won't be good, right? Your Highness has declared righteousness. I believe you won't blame me for bringing Miss June to young master's side, right? With that, Yin Leji reached out to grab Mu Yan's hand and pull her up. However, just as he was about to move, the man in front of him suddenly opened his eyes. Those dark eyes were always calm and indifferent in the past. It was like a tranquil sea without any waves. There were no waves, and it was unwilling to fight. Chapter 3690. But at this moment, the darkness suddenly turned into a bottomless abyss. Bone-chilling cold, azure flame. Their anxiety combined and transformed into the strongest killing intent and warning. Yin Leji shuddered all over. Cold sweat slid down his forehead uncontrollably. His back was already wet with sweat. He stood there stiffly for a long time before he suddenly exhaled and gasped for breath. The fear of his internal organs and soul being crushed at any moment made him so scared that he even forgot to breathe. Was this really the First Highness who had a weak sense of existence and could be bullied by anyone in the Nether Realm? Why did he feel that he was facing a murderous Azura from hell? Yin Leji, what are you doing? Seeing that he didn't move, Yin Yuanyi's face suddenly darkened, and he snapped. Bring that bitch to this young master. Yin Leji suddenly came back to himself. His face suddenly turned blue and white. He was afraid of Luo Yunxiao at this time, but he was even more afraid of Yin Yuanyi's cruel and angry hunger. Taking a deep breath, Yin Leji gritted his teeth and said, Your Highness, why are you looking at me like this? This woman is the young master's concubine, and the young master is the future heir of the Nether Realm. I dare not disobey his orders, but you also have to obey, right? He glanced at June Mayan. The black mark of the dark Yin Holy Flame on her forehead was getting brighter and brighter. Obviously, the expulsion would be successful soon. But if he really waited until the expulsion was successful and then brought her to Inyuani, he would be in serious trouble. Thinking of this, Yinluji suddenly made up his mind. He bent down to grab Mayan's arm and was about to pull her up. He shouted fiercely, "Your Highness, even if you want to expel the dark, holy flame, it should be the young master who does it. Your identity is not legitimate, and you are so close to the young master's concubine. Even if the First Highness can't punish you, Miss June's chastity will be ruined. At that time, it is unknown whether she will end up in a pig cage or not." Before he finished speaking, Yinluji suddenly felt a cold light flash in front of his eyes. Then, an arm splashed with blood flew in front of him. Yinluji feels that the sinking force that was originally pulling Mayan has disappeared. What replaced it was a sharp pain that came after he realized it. Yinluji clutched his severed arm and fell to the ground, letting out a blood-curdling scream. In front of him was Luo Yunxiao, who slowly stood up with a long sword in her hand. His appearance was like an orchid, a jade tree, unparalleled in the world. But his expression was bone-chilling, like an Azura from hell. His voice was clear and pleasant to listen to, filling the ears and causing one to be intoxicated. However, the words that came out of his mouth were like the voice of a ferocious ghost, causing one's body and soul to tremble uncontrollably. Even though Yinluji was in excruciating pain, he could still feel those voices drilling into his ears like ice-cold, venomous snakes. "Don't touch her with your dirty hands." This change caused the entire courtyard in front of Chuya Palace to sink into a strange silence. Only Yinluji's miserable howls echoed in everyone's ears. Luo Yunxiao's eyes fell on Inyuani's face. Her eyes were as calm as still water. Inyuani's face turned pale. The fear and memories from a long time ago surged up like a tide at this moment. He suppressed the fear in his heart and shouted, Luo Yunxiao, how dare you hurt my people? How dare you?" Chapter 3691. Luo Yunxiao stepped forward with a sword in her hand. The leader of the guards quickly stepped forward and blocked Luo Yunxiao's way. The rest of Inyuani's guards also spread out and surrounded Luo Yunxiao. His eyes met with a pair of bottomless black eyes. The guard leader couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Your First Highness, what are you doing? The young lord is your younger brother and the future successor of the Nether Domain. Have you forgotten the promise you made in front of the Region Lord and Empress Dark?" Luo Yunxiao looked at Inyuani expressionlessly. His voice was still calm and indifferent, as if there were no fluctuations in his emotions. "You used the dark, holy flame to deal with her." After a pause, he asked again, "You used the dark, holy flame that you took from me to deal with her?" Muyin wakes up from Qiuqiu and Qi Huang's worried calls. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw this scene. That was what he heard. Mayan stares blankly at Luo Yunxiao's back. For a moment, she's somewhat dumbfounded. Ever since she was brought back to Chuya Palace by Ning Kunshin, she had been trying to stall for time. But she didn't expect that the one who came first wasn't Diming Ju, but youngest martial uncle. Why would junior martial uncle come to the Ning family? Moreover, he had just said, "You used the dark holy flame that you took from me to deal with her?" Qi Huang, what does little martial uncle mean? Qi Huang's face was ashen. After a long while, he finally gritted his teeth and said, "What else could it mean? The dark sacred flame was ignited by that pretty boy Luo Yunxiao in the river of forgetfulness. I almost died back then." There was one more thing that Qi Huang did not say. Back then, Luo Yunxiao had almost died. He was also implicated by that detestable gigolo and was in so much pain that he hovered between life and death. It was Mayan zither that eased his pain and also saved Luo Yunxiao from the edge of life and death. Mu Yin whispered. Inyuani took away the dark, holy flame that youngest martial uncle refined. How did you take it away? She asked, but a scene from a long time ago had already appeared in her mind. Little martial uncle suddenly came back, but he was seriously injured. His back was a bloody mess. But what was more serious was the damage to his divine soul. He had spent a great deal of effort to barely heal him. Could it be that time? Chi Huang lightly snorted. According to the relevant ancient records of the Nether Realm, activating the Dark Een sacred flame is equivalent to obtaining the inheritance of the sacred spirit. The inheritance of the sacred spirit is directly engraved on a person's body using a special rune. In order to dig it out and transfer it, the inheritor had to be willing to bear the heart-gouging and bone-gnawing pain, having the entire rune pattern scraped away from his body while he was still alive, and even cutting off the connection between his divine soul and the inheritance of the sacred spirit. That pain, he pauses, then coldly says, that kind of pain is probably 100 times, 1,000 times more painful than when you made the Tian Mo Qin recognize you as its master. Mu Yan's face suddenly darkened, and a faint, baleful aura appeared between her brows. How dare he bully the young martial uncle of the Xiao Yao sect? How dare they let their celestial little martial uncle suffer such torture? Very good. In Yuani, you're going to die today? Humph. Chi Huang mocked. Isn't all of this the pretty boy's fault? Who asked him to be so stupid? Others wanted to take away the Holy Spirit inheritance from him, and he just obediently let them take it away. You even caused this noble one to have to follow you. Chi Huang didn't say anything else after that. Mu Yan already had some guesses about the connection between Chi Huang and Little Martial Uncle, but all of her guesses were hazy and vague. The correct chapter of Alluring Enchantress of the Magic Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, will continue to be updated on the Hand-to-Play bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the Hand-to-Play bar. Like Alluring Enchantress of the Magic Doctor, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father, please collect. Chapter 3692. In reality, up until now, even Chi Huang was still confused. He couldn't explain why he had a soul connection with that pretty boy, Luo Yunxiao. But he was definitely a fool, an idiot, and an idiot. The Dark Een holy flame, which he had risked his life to cultivate, was taken away just like that. Chi Huang only bore 30 to 50% of the pain for Luo Yunxiao, but it was already unbearable for him. It could be imagined what kind of inhuman torture Luo Yunxiao had endured when the inheritance of the Netherworld Holy Spirit was taken away. But perhaps that torture was not the most unbearable for Luo Yunxiao. What made him the most unbearable, even to the point of mental collapse? Yin Yuani used the Dark Een holy flame, which he had taken from him, to hurt Mayan. To hurt the woman he was willing to sacrifice everything to protect. Chi Huang lowered his eyes slightly, revealing a sarcastic expression, but there was a touch of desolation and sorrow in his eyes. On the other side, Yin Yuani, who heard Luo Yunxiao's question, was stunned at first. Then he noticed that his personal guard and even a Ning family all looked at him. He panicked. Luo Yunxiao, shut the hell up, she yelled in fury. The Darking Holy Flame is something that I, young master, painstakingly cultivated. The inheritance of the Netherworld Holy Spirit also belongs to me alone. What does it have to do with you, a lowly bastard, a rat who can't see the light? Luo Yunxiao chuckled in a low voice. He was already incomparably handsome and gentle like jade. At this time, when he smiled, it was really like the sun shining on a snow-covered mountaintop, dazzling people. But such a peerless face, such a seductive smile, the smile did not reach his eyes at all. In his eyes, there was only a bone-chilling coldness and undisguised killing intent. In Yuani, I gave you what I gave you willingly. But if I don't want to, I can take it back at any time. In Yuani, do you believe me? As soon as the voice fell, Luo Yunxiao's tall figure had disappeared. An indescribable panic rose in In Yuani's heart. He almost shouted hysterically, "Stop him! Stop him! No, kill him! Kill him for me! If anything happens, I'll take care of it. I order you to kill him right now." In Yuani's guards were ready, and half of them surrounded In Yuani to protect him. The other half charged forward without hesitation, wanting to kill Luo Yunxiao. This battle was no longer something that the people present could see clearly. Apart from Mayan, only Ning Kunshin can vaguely capture Luo Yunxiao's figure. But before he could see the man's movements clearly, a soundless sword qi suddenly streaked across the underground palace of the Ning family. A cold sword shook the 9 provinces. The sword made no sound, and heaven and earth resonated. Buzz, buzz, buzz! Violent quakes came from every corner of the Ning family's underground palace. Countless rocks, sand, and glowing crystals tumbled down from above. What's wrong? What happened? The people of the Ning clan all let out panic cries. In the next moment, he heard a loud rumbling sound. Then, a fierce gust of wind mixed with sand and dust blew down from above. Sand and stones appeared together with the gale, and the bright and beautiful sunshine. The people of the Ning family all screamed in horror, hiding everywhere. Chapter 3693. Mu Yin looked at the huge hole above, the blue sky, the white clouds, and the bright sun. She was stunned. What happened just now? Did youngest martial uncle pierce through the Ning family's underground palace with one strike? No, it was not a big deal. If she used all her strength, it was not impossible to pierce through. But youngest martial uncle just made one strike, right? Moreover, it was done in an extremely casual manner, as if it were chopping vegetables. It was an effortless slash. This sword not only pierced through the Ning family's underground palace, it also knocked down half of Yuani's guards, more than a dozen Xian immortals. As if he was chopping vegetables, he silently fell to the ground without the slightest bit of resistance. Mu Yin was shocked for a long time, and then her eyes slowly fell on Luo Yunxiao. She frowned in confusion. Was youngest martial uncle so strong before? On the cultivation continent, youngest martial uncle had fought with Ning Su, who was a Xian immortal. At that time, youngest martial uncle obviously had the upper hand, but he was a little timid, as if he was afraid to show his full strength. And even if he used all his strength, he could never make such a shocking strike. Did youngest martial uncle become stronger? Or, at this moment, youngest martial uncle was not in his normal state? But she had to admit that youngest martial uncle was so handsome. She was so envious of him. In the Xiaoyao sect, only Mu Yin and Yun Ruhan were sword cultivators. Since her strength had improved by leaps and bounds on the floating island, Mu Yin had always thought that her swordsmanship was improving little by little. But now, seeing youngest martial uncle's one strike, only now did she realize how far away her attainments in the sword Dao were from the great perfection realm. These days, she was complacent about the rapid growth of her cultivation, and the number of her natal swords increased from 1 to 8. She was getting closer and closer to the heavenly tribulation. But in fact, her swordsmanship was not advancing, but regressing. Now, the distance between her and youngest martial uncle was getting farther and farther. How long had it been since her heart of sword was consolidated and broken through? How long had it been since her realm stopped at the 4th level? She still had a long way to go if she wanted to become a true powerhouse and protect her loved ones. Seeing that Luo Yunxiao had killed half of his guards with just one strike, he felt a chill run down his spine. Yuani finally panicked. He desperately pushed the guard beside him forward and screamed, "Stop him! Quickly stop him!" She rushed to Ning Fuxing's side, grabbed him, and dragged him in front of her. Then she screamed, "Take me to the teleportation formation. Take me to the teleportation formation. I want to go back to the Xiaoxian continent. Do you hear me?" Ning Fuxing's face was pale. He was hiding from the sunlight shining through the hole. Pulled by Yuani, it was immediately exposed to the sunlight. There was no burning sensation, nor was there any obvious pain. However, Ning Fuxing could clearly feel his life slipping away bit by bit under the sunlight. It was as if countless terrifying images flashed before his eyes. He hurriedly took out the elixir and swallowed it. If the Ning family wanted to go out for a short period of time, they had to take a special age-retaining pill. Otherwise, they would age quickly and become delirious under the sunlight. However, before he could swallow the elixir, Yuani slapped him hard in the face. I want you to bring me to the teleportation array immediately. Do you hear me? As he roared, he gnashed his teeth and swore in his heart. When he returned to the Xioshin continent, he would tell his father and mother that Luo Yunxiao, that bastard, was going to kill him again. Chapter 3694. His father and mother will never let him go. Luo Yunxiao, they're going to die. Ha ha ha. However, Ning Fuxing's next words make his ferocious smile freeze on his face. Young Master Yin, it will take at least 1 month for the transmission array to be reactivated through the space barrier. Now, it can't be used yet. What did you say? Yuani grabs Ning Fuxing's neck fiercely and roars hysterically. Bastard, I dare you to say it again. Ning Fuxing's eyes bulge, and his face turns purple. He looks at Ning Kunshin with a pleading look. But Ning Kunshin avoids it. Yuani is mad. As he hears the screams of his guards behind him, more panic and resentment surges in his heart. A ball of black flame suddenly sprang up from his palm, directly burning Ning Fuxing's neck along with the action of grabbing it. Ning Fuxing immediately let out a blood-curdling scream and fainted. Under the sun, his middle-aged face is covered with wrinkles in an instant. He looks so old as if he will die at any time. Yuani makes up his mind and suddenly pounces on Mayan. Ningyu, who is watching the battle, can't help shouting, Mayan, be careful. Luo Yunxiao, who is in front of him, pauses and ignores the sword of the leader of the guards. He quickly turns around and rushes to Mayan. Mayan squints slightly. Looking at Yuani, who is rushing over, she can't help but smile grimly. Does he think I'm a pushover that can be bullied at will? Raising his hand, the Tian Mo Qin appears in his palm. The melodious sound of the Qin is accompanied by the whistling cold wind. Yuani sees that he is getting closer and closer to his target. He is about to catch the bitch and threaten Luo Yunxiao to stop. Suddenly, he feels a cold light flashing and countless sword qi gathering from all directions. Huh, Yuani sneers. He doesn't care about the sword qi released by a little golden immortal at all. He doesn't even try to block it. He just lets the sword qi fall on his robe and rushes directly to Mayan. He suddenly stretches out his hand with the dark, holy flame and clasps the girl's slender white neck. In other words, he had grasped Luo Yunxiao's lifeline. A hideous smile appeared on Yuani's face. However, in the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. This was because the figure in his hand suddenly disappeared like a phantom. Behind him, a silent killing intent penetrated his body. Adash! Yuani screamed, his face twisted. His robe was almost invulnerable. But Mayan's sword is a clone of the Tian Mo Qin. After experiencing the Tian Mo Qin's several restorations, it can be said to be invincible. Therefore, the 7 absolute swords easily pierced into Yuani's body. The tip of the sword was also coated with the deadly poison death-stealing Yama and golden silkworm goo. Of course, the poison and the goo couldn't kill Yuani. However, it caused his entire body to spasm in pain. Especially the golden silkworm goo that entered his body and began to gnaw at his fragile internal organs. Yuani couldn't help but groan in pain. He held the 7 ultimate sword that had pierced through his body. His face contorted as he pulled out the sword. Then, he turned around with an incomparably swift movement. The hand that was raised has turned into a burning flame, and the nails are black hooked claws. The Enchantress of the Enchantress, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect it. Chapter 3695. Yuani's eyes were bloodshot, as if he had gone mad. He reached out to grab Muyan's heart. Poochie! The nails pierced through the flesh, and blood splattered everywhere. But Muyan doesn't feel the slightest pain. In front of her, a tall figure was standing quietly, shielding her behind him. There was a long gash on his thin green robe. Under the torn clothes, his back was straight, but one could see the exposed skin and flesh so deep that bones could be seen. His green robe was already soaked in blood, but the figure didn't even shake. Even when he was under Yuani's attack, he suddenly raised his sword and pierced the guard's throat. Mu Yan's lips moved. For a moment, he felt that his throat was dry, and he was unable to speak. She wanted to ask, "Youngest martial uncle, why?" She wanted to ask, "Youngest martial uncle, just to save a martial nephew, you don't even care about your life?" But when the words reached his mouth, not a single sound came out. In the depths of his heart, a vague thought emerged. But he was quickly slapped back by her. The situation was critical, and it was not the time to let one's imagination run wild. "Little martial uncle, you're injured." Mu Yin steps forward, wanting to give Luo Yunxiao a healing elixir. He said coldly, "Step back, don't come near me, but don't stay too far away from me." Luo Yunxiao's voice was cold and harsh, which was rarely seen. But Mu Yin didn't think too much about it. Without hesitation, she retreats several meters away, then takes the Tian Mo Qin and sits down cross-legged. The wound on Luo Yunxiao's back healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, Yuani's claw in Luo Yunxiao's chest was pulled out by his wrist. The long black nails cut through the flesh. Watching from the side, Mu Yin couldn't help but feel the pain. However, Luo Yunxiao didn't seem to notice it at all, and she didn't even frown. Yuani's guards rushed over, trying to save their young master. Luo Yunxiao was seriously injured, but her right hand was still controlling Yuani. However, he was able to kill each of the guards with a swing of his sword. In the end, the ground in front of Chuya Palace was filled with the corpses of Xian immortal guards. Blood flowed like a river. Only Yin Leji, who had lost his arm, and the leader of the guards were still alive. Yuani screamed and struggled desperately. "Luo Yunxiao, are you rebelling? If you dare to lay a hand on me, my father and the people behind the scenes will never let you off." Ah! With a cracking sound, Yuani's wrist was broken. Luo Yunxiao's eyes were cold as he turned around and threw the long sword in his hand. The long sword whistled and immediately split into three in the air. The leader of the guards, who had silently rushed over to launch a sneak attack, could not even see the trajectory of the long sword flying towards him. He only felt a sharp pain in his shoulder and abdomen. Then, he was ruthlessly nailed to the tree. Luo Yunxiao turned around and looked at Yuani expressionlessly. Yuani's face was finally filled with panic and fear. "Luo Yunxiao, what are you going to do? Do you remember what you promised Imperial Father and Imperial Mother? You swore that you would never hurt me again, and you would never let your own flesh and blood kill each other ever again." Mu Yin, who hears this from behind, is simply shocked by his shamelessness. Chapter 3696. "Oh, I remember. Your parents are even more shameless than you. You guys are really shamelessly close like a family." Through Qi Huang's narration, plus what she had seen and heard from Luo Yunxiao, Mu Yin has already learned about her youngest uncle's life. It's not a big deal. Isn't it just a pair of biased parents who love their youngest son? No matter what youngest uncle got, he must give it to his youngest son. Otherwise, it will be treason. Even the dark, unholy flame that youngest uncle cultivated by a narrow escape must be given to his youngest son. Even if youngest uncle was stripped of the dark, unholy flame, he may be in great pain. This was no longer just favoritism. It was pure shamelessness. Yuani's face is ferocious, and he says angrily, "Bitch, you know nothing. You don't understand what a dirty thing Luo Yunxiao is. He shouldn't exist in this world." He hasn't finished his words yet. Mu Yan's figure suddenly disappears. The next moment, she slaps Yuani hard in the face. He sees stars, and blood oozes from the corner of his mouth. Yuani is completely stunned. He stares at Mu Yin incredulously and screams, "Bitch, how dare you hit me?" Slap, 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 slap. Countless slaps fall on Yuani's face like a series of thunder. Because he is restrained by Luo Yunxiao, he can't use his immortal power. Yuani is now just a relatively strong mortal body, and Mu Yin didn't slap him with her own hands. She feels that touching this garbage hurts her hands. She uses a miniature version of the 7 supreme swords. It is guaranteed to be invincible and unbreakable. Not to mention that Yuanyi can't use his spiritual power now, even if he can. Mu Yin will definitely hit him until his parents don't recognize him. After a round of slaps, Yuanyi's head immediately swells like a pig's head. His eyes are almost covered by his swollen eyelids, and he can't see. Even a few of his teeth were loose from the beating. Mu Yin takes back the 7 supreme swords, shakes her hand, and sneers, "Idiot, I hit you." As she spoke, she glared at Luo Yunxiao and said with slight disappointment, "Young martial uncle, you're usually ruthless and merciless when you teach us a lesson, yet why are you so merciful to this stupid and useless weakling? What happened to father and mother? There were many beasts in the world who were worse than pigs and dogs, who were not worthy of being a father or a mother. Why do you care about them? In this world, there are naturally people who treat you as a true family member. Why do you have to be so stubbornly loyal to those who hurt you?" A smile flashed across Luo Yunxiao's eyes. Looking at the young girl's angry face, the coldness, brutality, and killing intent in his heart slowly dissipated. But he did not let his emotions show. It only took an instant for it to completely vanish. He looked at Yuanyi coldly and said indifferently, "As I said, I can give you my things and I can take them back." Yuanyi's swollen eyes suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. He didn't believe that Luo Yunxiao would dare to do that. Luo Yunxiao clearly obeyed Imperial Father and Imperial Mother, not daring to disobey them. He wouldn't dare. He absolutely wouldn't dare to hurt himself. Yes, he wouldn't dare. However, the next moment, a piercing pain surged from every inch of his meridians and dantian. Yuanyi felt that it was his own power. Chapter 3697. Yuanyi felt that it was his own power. The powerful dark, holy flame, which made him excited and fascinated, was being extracted from his body little by little. Yuanyi's face was full of horror and despair. How dare Luo Yunxiao? How dare he do this to himself? Moreover, he had clearly taken the dark, holy flame from him. How could it be taken back again? No, no. Yuanyi screamed loudly. He even cried and begged. "No, the dark, holy flame is mine. It's mine. You can't take it away. Luo Yunxiao, it's mine. I beg you, brother, I beg you." Luo Yunxiao just looked at him and cried expressionlessly. There was no trace of emotion on his face. He could tolerate Yuanyi taking anything away from him. It was what he owed him, what he owed the Nether Realm. But Yuanyi shouldn't have hurt Mu Yin. Yuanyi's screams became more and more miserable, and on his forehead there seemed to be a black flower breaking through his skin, desperately trying to drill out. However, at this moment, a dark red rune suddenly appeared on Yuanyi's rune. Then it suddenly flew towards Luo Yunxiao, piercing between his eyebrows. Luo Yunxiao's whole body flew out, fell to the ground, and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Young martial uncle!" Mu Yin screamed and rushed over. Then she heard a cold and majestic voice in the air. "Evil creature, I left this restriction just in case you hurt again. I didn't expect that you would be worse than an animal. You really dared to hurt your brother again. Luo Yunxiao, you really disappointed me. Hurry back to the Nether Realm to accept your punishment." As the voice resounded, Yuanyi's body slowly floated in the air. The black flower on his forehead, which seemed to break through his skin at any time, gradually disappeared. Instead, the unique rune flickered and wrapped Yuanyi's whole body. Soon, the wounds on Yuanyi's face and body were all healed. He slowly landed on the ground, raised his intact hand and looked at it. He was ecstatic. "It's father. Huh. I knew that Imperial Father would absolutely not allow me to be killed by that bastard. Luo Yunxiao. Ha! Not only did father heal my wounds, he even lent his power to me temporarily." As soon as Yuanyi's feet touched the ground, he couldn't wait to throw a punch. It was a loud bang. An underground palace of a Ning family was directly reduced to ruins. The smile on Yuanyi's face grew wilder and wilder. He walked towards Luo Yunxiao step by step, his eyes flickering with extreme hatred and brutality. "Luo Yunxiao, you son of a bitch. You've finally fallen into my hands today. How did you treat me just now? I'm going to pay you back 1,000 times over." As he spoke, Yuani punched out. Luo Yunxiao wanted to dodge. However, a red light immediately appeared on his body and turned into countless silk threads that tightly bound his body. This was no ordinary binding. It was like a restriction that had been placed in Luo Yunxiao's body a long time ago. As long as this restriction was activated, he would not have the slightest ability to resist. Bang! The punch landed on Luo Yunxiao's body. The destructive power that could cause a palace to collapse directly smashed into Luo Yunxiao's body. It made him spit out another mouthful of blood. Chapter 3698. His abdomen is sunken in. Yuani sees the uncontrollable pain on his face, and his eyes turn red with excitement. He took a step forward, intending to throw another punch. How can Mayan allow him to hurt little martial uncle like this? She doesn't think about it and jumps forward. The Tian Mo Qin blocks Yuani's attack. This is a blow from a venerable immortal. The Tian Mo Qin can't be broken. But Mayan feels as if her internal organs have been ruthlessly smashed and stirred. Her body suddenly flies out, and she spits out a mouthful of blood. Mayan! Luo Yunxiao sees this scene, and his eyes are about to split open. He struggles desperately to stand up, but the red line on his body firmly binds him, making him unable to move. Yuani is very dissatisfied that his torture of Luo Yunxiao has been interrupted. He sneers and is about to punch for the third time. But Mayan, who has been flying upside down in the air, suddenly takes a step and flies back. The 7 absolute swords split into 7, blocking Yuani. At the same time, the Tian Mo Qin plays the divine hand, weaves the heavens, blocking Yuani's action. A scream overflows from Mayan's mouth. Her whole body lightly falls from the air, and blood gushes out of her mouth and nose. Mayan, how are you? Ningyu screams and wants to rush over, but Ning Kunshin smiles and holds her down. Luo Yunxiao doesn't care about the comfort of the red energy and desperately crawls towards Mayan. The red energy cuts his flesh inch by inch, and even his bones. But he doesn't seem to feel it. At this moment, there's only the girl in his eyes that he swore to protect with his life. Not only did he not protect her, instead, he made her die, trying to protect him. At this moment, Luo Yunxiao only feels that something in his mind has broken. His eyes turn blood red little by little. His bloody hands, cut by the restriction, crawl on the ground, approaching Mayan little by little. A thought is getting clearer and clearer in his mind. Destroy all of this. Destroy everything in this world that will hurt Mayan. Yuani sees Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance, tears streaming down her face. He stopped attacking with great interest. He slowly walks forward and grabs Mu Yan's hair, forcing her to raise her head. Luo Yunxiao, it seems like your love for this woman is unforgettable. You didn't even show such an expression when you were about to die. When the Netherworld Holy Spirit's inheritance was taken away, I didn't see you shed a single tear. But now, you're crying over a woman. Luo Yunxiao, do you want me to let this woman go? Kneel down and beg me. Luo Yunxiao closed her eyes and knelt down to Yuani without hesitation. I beg you, let me in go. Ha ha ha. Yuani burst out laughing. The expression on his face was indescribably contorted. He had always wanted to see Luo Yunxiao like a stray dog. However, when the maidservant beside him was killed, he did not have any mood swings. When a Netherworld Holy Spirit's inheritance was taken away, he didn't have any interest in it. When he was despised by his imperial father and imperial mother, he didn't have any interest. He's obviously a pitiful worm with nothing, an existence that should be hated and disliked by everyone. But he always keeps his back straight, revealing an awe-inspiring and inviolable expression. Why? Chapter 3699. Why didn't that bastard Luo Yunxiao get trampled in the mud? Why didn't he beg and cry to him? And now, Yuani finally got what he wanted. He finally saw Luo Yunxiao kneeling in front of him like a dog, crying and begging for mercy. He longed for him to give him a little mercy and charity. Ha 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 ha, Luo Yunxiao, you deserve this. Do you want me to let this woman go? But I won't. The expression on Yin Yuanyi's face became more and more ferocious and excited. He tore off Luo Yunxiao's clothes that Mu Yan was wearing. He reached out and clasped Mu Yan's chin. Not only will I not let her go, but I will also have her in front of you. Luo Yunxiao, I want you to know that whether you want or not, you can't get it. Luo Yunxiao suddenly stood up and roared. Yin Yuanyi, don't you dare! Clouds of bloody mist burst out of his body. Even his unparalleled handsome face was riddled with holes by the restriction at this moment. It was too horrible to look at. At this moment, he was no longer the young Master Yunxiao, who was as beautiful as a jade. He was a Shura ghost who walked out of hell step by step, stepping on red lotus fire, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Yin Yuanyi's face showed a touch of horror and fear. But soon, the red energy lines on Luo Yunxiao's body lit up. His fragile body could no longer support him and fell to the ground. Yin Yuanyi breathed a long sigh of relief. Then he couldn't help but spit, and his grinning eyes fell on Mu Yan's face again. A peerless beauty. That was what moved him in the first place. But what made Yin Yuanyi more excited was that he knew how angry and mad he would be if he played with his beloved woman in front of Luo Yunxiao. His mother had always told him to avoid Luo Yunxiao and not to make him angry. It was obvious that Empress Mother still had feelings for this son of a bitch. But why? His father and mother, everything in the nether realm should be his. Luo Yunxiao, that monster who was neither human nor ghost, was not qualified to have everything in the world. He should die without a burial place, fall into hell forever, and be consigned to eternal damnation. Yin Yuanyi's fingers pinched Mu Yan's face tightly, making a cracking sound. Because of the pain, Mayan wakes up from her coma. Looking into her eyes, Yin Yuanyi's smile became more and more excited. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to have fun with a dead body. Now that you've woken up, we can put on a good show. Luo Yunxiao, you must open your eyes wide and watch how this young master takes your woman. Yin Yuanyi and Mu Yan didn't notice. Luo Yunxiao's crimson eyes gradually turned black. Bit by bit, it was as if it wanted to infect his eyes and soul. However, at such a moment, which should have been filled with grief, despair, and rage, Mu Yan looks at Yin Yuanyi's smug smile and slowly raises the corner of her mouth. It was a look of looking at a dead person or an idiot. Contempt, disdain. There was also a thick, murderous aura that wanted to kill him. Yin Yuanyi suddenly felt very unhappy. He frowned and sneered. Bitch, what are you laughing at? Do you think anyone will come to save you now? Mu Yan moved her cracked and pale lips and said word by word. I'm laughing at how miserable your death will be. Chapter 3700. Do you think that Luo Yunxiao, who can't even protect herself now, can save you? In this world, no one can save you. The 5 fingers on her chin suddenly tighten. There's a sharp pain in her bones. But the smile on Mayan's face is even more gloomy and brilliant. Yin Yuanyi, when you fall into my fiancé's hands, don't cry too ugly. Your fiancé, ha ha, are you using your fiancé to scare this young lord? So if your fiancé isn't Luo Yunxiao, then who is it? Could it be the prince of the Lan family empire on this floating island? Yin Yuanyi says this, simply convulsing with laughter. Don't you know that on this floating island, no matter how many people come, for this young lord, they're just ants that can be casually trampled to death. You expect these ants to save you, and Luo Yunxiao, ha, slut, don't dream. You'd better think about how you're going to moan under this young lord's body, wail, and beg for mercy. With that, Yin Yuanyi reaches out to pull her clothes. He doesn't forget to look at Luo Yunxiao with malicious excitement. However, at this moment, Yin Yuanyi hears a voice that he will never forget. Yin Yuanyi, do you want Ben Jun's fiancé to wail and beg for mercy under you? Yin Yuanyi is startled. He wonders if he's hallucinating. How? How'd he hear Di Mingju's voice? Moreover, this voice is bone-chilling and eerie, as if it's coming from the depths of hell under the 9 serenities. Every word, every syllable seems to tear him into pieces, mince him into 1,000 pieces. Yuani shakes his head. He secretly wonders if he's hallucinating because of Luo Yunxiao's stimulation. But when he looks up, he sees Yin Leji's frightened eyes turning white. He shakily raises his hand and points behind Yuani. He stutters and vaguely shouts something. Di-Jun! June! Young lord, it's Di-Jun. Yuani slowly and stiffly turned around. Then he meets a pair of bone-chilling blue eyes. Immediately after, there's a handsome face that seems to be carefully carved by the heavens. Like a god, like a born king. No one dared to look at his face or look into his eyes. The moment they saw him, they only wanted to kneel down and submit. Di Mingju! Yuani screamed. The expression on his face was even more horrified and incredulous than when he saw Luo Yunxiao massacring his guards. Why is Di Mingju here? Shouldn't he be in the Xiaoxin continent, in the polar domain? Why would it appear in a lower realm like the floating island? Before he could finish thinking about it, a voice suddenly rang in his head. Yuani felt a sharp pain all over his body. Then, his body flew into the air and was smashed into the ground. Intense pain came from his limbs and bones. It was accompanied by the cracking sounds of bones all over his body. The power bestowed upon him by Wuji, which had allowed him to sweep through everything in his path and destroy everything in his path, was actually completely suppressed at this moment. His body, along with the power that Wuji had lent him, was firmly pressed to the ground. It was as if a hand was crushing him like crushing an ant, causing all the bones in his body to nearly shatter and making it hard for him to breathe. Yuani was in so much pain that he wished he could immediately faint. But he couldn't even let out a groan. He fell to the ground like a puddle of mud, unable to move his hands and feet. Chapter 3701. He looks on helplessly as Di Mingju quickly walks in front of Mayan. He bent down and picked up the girl. Then, as if he was holding a rare treasure, he carefully, anxiously, painfully, and bewilderedly pulled the girl into his arms. Yuani was going crazy. Wasn't Jun Mayan the stunning beauty that the Ning family offered to him? Wasn't he Luo Yunxiao's sweetheart? Aren't they the Shin musicians that everyone wants to kill? Why is it related to Di Mingju? And what did Di Mingju just say? Yuani, do you want my fiancé to beg for mercy under your body? Fiancé? Jun Mayan is just a little golden immortal on the floating island. How could she be Di Mingju's fiancé? Mu Yan's eyes were hazy as he stared blankly at the man who had descended in front of him like a god. There was only one sentence in his mind. Di Mingju, I've finally waited for you. The strength that had been supporting her suddenly dissipated. A piercing pain came from all over his body. Mu Yan's body went soft. She couldn't hold on any longer and fell backwards. But she did not fall to the cold ground. Instead, she was pulled into a scorching and trembling embrace. Mu Yan, the polar domain's sovereign emperor, who had always been cold and aloof, would always let out such a panicked and distressed voice because of her. Mu Yan's heart feels like it's being pricked by needles, but there's also an indescribable sense of peace and sweetness in the pain. She reached out and hugged the man, buried her face in his chest, and directly complained. Di Mingju, they bullied me and young Marshal Uncle. There's no need for Mayan to expend the effort to narrate what just happened. Little Phoenix has already rushed out of the space with tears in his eyes. Choking with sobs, he tells Di Mingju everything that just happened, especially those who bullied the beautiful sister. The little phoenix flapped its wings and pointed at them, not letting any of them go. Following little Phoenix's narration, Di Mingju's complexion becomes more and more gloomy, the look in his eyes becoming more and more bone-chilling. Everyone that was looked upon by the imperial monarch's icy cold eyes shivered, and they were terrified to the point of losing their souls. The more cowardly ones had already knelt on the ground with a thud. He shouted, "Emperor, spare me. Ning Kunshin unwaveringly stares at Di Mingju, almost unable to believe his own eyes. No, he couldn't believe what he was seeing more than Yin Yuani. Who is Di Mingju? That was the lofty and aloof, extreme, domain, sovereign lord with unparalleled authority. Among the three sovereigns, Di Mingju has the highest cultivation and the youngest. Some time ago, it was rumored that he had already broken through and become the only immortal emperor in the Xioshan continent. Such a supreme powerhouse. In the three realms, he could get whatever he wanted, and he could get whatever woman he wanted. How could it be? How could he be so gentle and protective towards a female cultivator from the lower realms like Mayan? His attitude didn't even seem like he was treating a beautiful concubine. Instead, he guarded the rare treasure in a humble and precious manner, as if he was afraid that it would slip away from his hands if he was not careful. And what did he hear Di Mingju say before? You want Ben Jun's fiancé to beg for mercy under your body? Fiancé. Jun Mayan is actually Polar Domain's monarch's fiancé. How is this possible? Ning Kunshin only felt a buzzing in his head, his body swayed, and he almost couldn't stand. Chapter 3702. Obviously, they only need to say a word from Jun Mayan, and they can get everything that they've been dreaming of. But now, would Mayan let them off? Would Defying let them go? It's over. Ning Kunshin's face kept trembling. There was only one word in his mind. It was over. No, it can't be over. He clenched his teeth tightly, and his turbid eyes were bloodshot. The Ning family would not be finished. He, Ning Kunshin, would not be finished. He still had the final trump card in his hand. God Monarch, this is a misunderstanding. Ning Kunshin shakily opens his mouth and tries to squeeze out a kind smile. A Mayan's ancestor, how could I harm? He did not finish his sentence. Crackling sounds could be heard in his ears. Then a sharp pain came from his internal organs. He didn't even have time to look down before a mist of blood exploded in front of his eyes, accompanied by scattered intestines. Ning Kunshin's eyes widened in disbelief, and his body collapsed powerlessly. Ning Fuxing, Ning Jiangwen, Ning Jianwu, and the others were just as miserable as him. Their bodies exploded, blood flowed out, and his intestines and organs rolled on the ground. However, none of them died. They endured the pain of having their chests and stomachs cut open. Just like that, their eyes bulged out and their mouths were wide open as they struggled at death's door. Only Ning Zhongbai and Ning Yu were safe and sound. When an imperial lord was enraged, corpses would float for thousands of miles. Little Phoenix fiercely glared at the Ning family members who were wailing and groaning and spat out a few mouthfuls of saliva. Serves you right for bullying my pretty sister. Don't you know that His Majesty cares about beautiful big sister the most? How dare you bully this beautiful sister? You're dead meat. Moreover, he would die an extremely miserable death. Not a single one could escape. Mayan swallows a healing elixir. Only then did his pale face slowly return to normal. By the time she opened her eyes, her fiancé had already brutally avenged her. None of the Ning family members were dead. At this moment, it was 100 times more painful than death. Mu Yin thinks of this group of people's shamelessness, cold-bloodedness, and selfishness, and her heart feels unspeakably carefree. But when he turns his head, he can't hide the heartache in Di Mingju's eyes. She could feel his body trembling uncontrollably because of fear. Mayan can't help but feel guilty. She reaches out and hugs him, softly saying, Di Mingju, don't worry, I'm fine. Di Mingju's lips move, wanting to roar at her. This is nothing. Only God knows how angry and panicked he was when he arrived and saw Mayan's disheveled clothes and bloodstains all over her body. He could barely suppress his crazy desire to kill and destroy. He wants to destroy everything except Mu Yin, including the floating island. However, when he saw the pale face of the girl in his arms and the trust in her eyes, Di Mingju still takes a deep breath, swallowing back the words that are on the tip of his tongue. He doesn't want Mayan to encounter any danger. But he can't keep Mu Yan by his side like he keeps a canary. Break her wings and lock her up in a luxurious and comfortable cage. Of course, it could isolate all the dangers. However, it was tantamount to depriving Mu Yan of the chance to experience wind and rain and grow. Mu Yan doesn't want that kind of life. She had said that she wanted to become stronger, to have the opportunity to protect everyone around her. She wants to have the qualifications to stand side by side with him one day. Deming Ju swallows back the sourness, pain, and endless worry in his heart, along with the words that are on the tip of his tongue. Chapter 3703. He reaches out and pulls the girl into his arms again. Tightly, tightly, as if he can't wait to integrate her into his own flesh and blood. He won't stop her from spreading her wings and flying high. But that doesn't mean that he will let her fall into danger time and time again. June Mayan, do you remember what you promised me? Mayan stiffens. The hands holding his body suddenly tighten, and her voice is low, like an injured and frightened cub. Deming Ju, why did you only come now? I was really scared just now. I thought that both me and young martial uncle would die in Yuani's hands. Fortunately, you came. It's not that I didn't care about my own safety. I believed that you would come to save me. Deming Ju, you will always stay by my side, won't you? The anger on Deming Ju's face is replaced by heartache and guilt in a flash. Even if he knows that this girl is trying to change the subject and pretend to be pitiful, Deming Ju still can't help but want to obey her and spoil her. Don't be afraid, Yin Yin. I'm here. No one can hurt you. I will always stay by your side. You can do what you want. I will stay by your side. Protect you. Rely on you. Indulge and spoil you. Let you live the life you want to live. When you encounter a crisis that you can't get through, I will appear by your side. Let all the disasters and torments not be able to really hurt you. This is my promise to you as a husband, as a man who loves you. Mayan's eyes suddenly feel a little hot. She has never liked to cry or act spoiled. No matter how much she has suffered, she can easily forget it and let it be in the past. But at this moment, in the arms of the man she loves, listening to his gentle and doting words, all of a sudden, Mayan really wants to vent all of her grievances, all the dark sides that she has seen since she came to the Ning family. Yin Yuani's sudden appearance, caught unprepared. Ning Kunshin, Ning Fuxing's shamelessness, betrayal and betrayal of her loved ones. Young martial uncle was injured because of her, on the verge of death because of her. Yin Yuani's humiliation, all the grievances and pain, she thought that she could ignore them, that she could bear them by herself. But at this moment, she suddenly realized something. It turned out to be such a warm and happy thing to be able to find someone who would accept her unconditionally, allowing her to show her weakness and vent her grievances. Mu Yan hugs Deming Ju, burying her face deep in his chest. Deming Ju doesn't know if she's crying. However, he felt a burst of heat and wetness in his chest. For a moment, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. It makes him wish that he could immediately dismember everything that had harmed Mayan. He is at a loss as to what to do. He can only tightly hold the girl in his arms while hoarsely saying, Yin Yin, I'm sorry, I came late. I shouldn't have left your side. Mu Yan pushes him away, revealing a bright smile on her face. Although her eyes were a little red, there were no tears. Deming Ju stares blankly. Mayan smiles and says, Deming Ju, are you angry now? Don't be mad at me, okay? The young girl smiled like a flower. Hearing this, she acted like a spoiled child and begged, revealing a side of her that she would never show in front of others. No matter how angry she is, she can't let it out. Deming Ju couldn't help but grit his teeth and pinch her face. June Mayan, you're relying on the fact that Ben Jun can't do anything to you. Chapter 3704. Mu Yan's smile becomes brighter, but she immediately restrains it, because she remembers the seriously injured Luo Yunxiao. Yin Yuani, who is pressed to the ground by Deming Ju and unable to move, suddenly shines with a dark red light. Yin Yuani's wounds begin to heal, and his suppressed body slowly stands up. Clearly, the fight is not over. Yue, who has stood up again, looks like a completely different person. His body shines with a dazzling black and red light. His eyes twinkle, making his whole face blurry. Vaguely, Mu Yin seems to see a double image on Yue's face. Di Mingju, what do you want to do to my son? It's an old and rough voice, borrowing Yue's body to angrily question Di Mingju. Mu Yin had also heard this voice before Luo Yunxiao was restrained by the restriction just now. She has already guessed that this should be Wuji, Little Master and Yue's father, the Lord of the Netherworld domain. As soon as she thinks of what this person has done to little martial uncle, Mayan's face suddenly sinks. But separated by two worlds, Wuji can possess Yue's body and lend him such a powerful strength. This person is obviously very strong. Mu Yin can't help but hold Di Mingju's hand, her eyes revealing some worry. She's afraid that Di Mingju will be injured. Di Mingju gives her a gentle and comforting expression. Don't worry, nothing will happen to me. Starwolf, who has entered the Ning family at some point, immediately proudly raises his chin and sneers. Even if Wuji, that old thief, is here, Junshang would be too lazy to pay attention to him. What's more, it's just an insignificant skill like spirit not possessed by body. Wuji can't even display half of his cultivation when he borrows Yue's body. Junshang only needs to move a finger to crush people to death. Hearing Starwolf's words, Mu Yin sighs in relief and can't help but look at Di Mingju. Di Mingju feels his heart skip a beat when he is gazed at by those focused and shining peach blossom eyes. His ears are a little hot. Anyone who is looked at by the girl they loved with a gaze of worship and trust will be flustered and his heart would be shaken. Even the lofty emperor of the polar domain is no exception. He resists the urge to hold her in his arms and kiss her fiercely in public. He looked up at Yue. The gentleness in his eyes was instantly replaced by a bone-piercing, killing intent. Di Mingju carelessly says, "Isn't the Region Lord very clear about what Benjun wants to do? Yue's worthless life is mine." Di Mingju, you dare. Wuji roared in anger, but there was some panic in his voice. Is the successor of my nether region, the successor of the nether Holy Spirit. If you kill him, it is equivalent to the polar domain declaring war on the nether region. Are you really going to disregard everything and stir up a war with two other regions? Are you going to watch as the people are plunged into misery and suffering? He dashed. Di Mingju lets out a sneer of ridicule, his eyebrows as sharp as a knife. Protectorate Lordine, you're really quick to accuse us. If you treasure your stupid son so much, why don't you keep a closer eye on him? Since he has the guts to humiliate this lord's fiancée, then he should have the guts to bear this lord's wrath. Yue's cold body seemed to shiver instinctively. Wuji's voice is angry and anxious. What fiancé? Went to the floating island. How could the dignified future holy empress of the polar domain be on the floating island and coincidentally run into here? Chapter 3705. Di Mingju, you're clearly talking irresponsibly. You want to stir up the flames of war between the polar domain and the nether domain. Di Mingju hooks up his lips, the corners of his eyes revealing a trace of impatience and fierceness. Yue, I'm going to kill you today. Region Lordine, if you insist on thinking that this monarch is intentionally provoking the flames of war between the polar domain and the nether domain, then so be it. If the nether realm wants to start a war, the polar realm will accompany them. Wuji could not believe his ears. Just for a woman. Di Mingju, are you crazy? Are you really willing to go to war with my nether realm just for a woman? He took a deep breath, feeling a little aggrieved, and softened his tone. Di Mingju, I admit that it was rash this time. But didn't your fiancé suffer no losses? My nether realm is willing to express our sincerity and apologize to you. Mingtu Bay has already been taken, and I am willing to give it to the polar domain for free. This should be fine, right? Xing Lang's eyelids twitch, and he subconsciously looks at Di Mingju. The north of Mingtu Bay was ceded to the polar domain. This loss was too great for the Nether Realm. It seemed that Yin Wuji really valued his son, Yin Yuani. Unfortunately, he was about to be disappointed. Star Wolf couldn't help but curl the corners of his lips, revealing a mocking sneer. Miss June and the Little Master are Jun Shang's reverse scales. Whoever touched it would die. Yin Yuani hurt Miss June so badly. He even wanted to encroach on the future divine empress of their polar domain. It would be strange if Jun Shang would let him go. As expected, these benefits that could make all those in power palpitate with eagerness were promised. But Di Mingju doesn't even have a trace of expression on his face. With a wave of his hand, a black longsword flew out of his hand and struck straight at Yin Yuani. Crackle! Dark blue flames burst out of Yin Yuani's chest, making him let out a shrill scream. The dark red light that enveloped his body flickered, as if it could be extinguished at any moment. Yin Yuani's face twisted in pain. However, his eyes were filled with fear and despair. "Father, save me. Save me. I don't want to die. Di Mingju, I didn't know she was your woman. I really didn't know. I thought she was Luo Yunxiao's sweetheart. If I had known that she was your fiancée, I would never have touched a single hair of hers. Di Mingju, let me go. As long as you let me go, my father will give you a lot of compensation." He had yet to finish his horse, please. Di Mingju's second sword has already come out. Yin Yuani, a false immortal king, has no power to resist Di Mingju. His body was so stiff that he couldn't move at all. It was the flickering red light that controlled him to dodge to the side, allowing him to narrowly avoid the fatal blow. But the red light enveloping his body was getting weaker and weaker. Yin Wuji's voice was filled with rage, but it also carried an indescribable panic. "Di Mingju, don't go too far. What kind of compensation do you want? As long as you say it, we can discuss it." Di Mingju coldly enunciated each word. "I only have one request, and that is to let him die without a burial ground. Father, Imperial Mother, save me, save me. I don't want to die." Yin Yuani's shouts were heart-wrenching and lung-splitting, and he cut a sorry figure as he fled. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and screamed, "Luo Yunxiao! Luo Yunxiao is in cahoots with that woman." Chapter 3706. Imperial Father, quickly order Luo Yunxiao to save my life. Di Mingju will never dare to hurt Luo Yunxiao. As long as Luo Yunxiao is my shield, I will definitely be saved. Mine is simply shocked by the shamelessness of this father and son pair. How do they treat Little Master just now? Now, they want Little Master to be Yin Yuani's shield? But fuck them. Mayan coldly glances at Di Mingju. Di Mingju raises his hand and directly sets up an isolation boundary, isolating Mayan and Luo Yunxiao from himself. He must kill Yin Yuani. But Yin Wuji has lived for so many years and is also the lord of a region. If he is forced into a desperate situation, he might do something desperate. It would be bad if he really uses Luo Yunxiao as a shield or injures Mayan. Mayan has been worried about Luo Yunxiao's injury. Seeing that Di Mingju is dealing with Yin Wuji with ease, she turns around and goes to Luo Yunxiao's side. She carefully helps her up. "Little Master, how are you?" When she gets closer, she sees Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance. Mayan's tears almost fall. At this time, there's almost no good flesh on Luo Yunxiao's body. That incomparably handsome face was densely covered in scars, and fresh blood was still dripping down at this moment. The wound on his abdomen was punched by Yin Yuani's fist. It is the severe pain of his broken bones and his internal organs being severely injured. There are even several white ribs directly piercing through the flesh on the left side. This is the unparalleled young Master Yunxiao that everyone in the Xiojin continent seeks after. This is their Xiao Yao sect's most brilliant, most elegant, and peerless little master, But now he has been tortured to such a state by Yin Yuani and Yin Wuji, father and son. and listening to the meaning of Qi Huang's words. Little Master may have suffered this kind of torture from childhood to adulthood. Luo Yunxiao opens his eyes in a trance and meets Mayan's red eyes, as well as her infuriated expression. At this moment, his cold and numb heart suddenly seems to be washed by a warm current. Something that is constantly hovering and growing in his heart, constantly trying to drill into his heart and soul, quietly disappears under the wash of this warm current. Luo Yunxiao's clothes suddenly move. With reddened eyes, Qi struggled to free herself from the spirit pet pouch and squeezed out. Seeing Luo Yunxiao's miserable appearance, Qi can no longer hold back and cries out, "Master, how did you get hurt so badly? Why didn't you let me help you just now?" Woo-woo. Qi wants to cry in Luo Yunxiao's arms, but Muyan's sharp eyes and quick hands pull him back. Mayan's face darkens as she says in a hoarse voice, "Do you want to make Junior Martial Uncle's injuries worse?" Qi didn't dare to move anymore, but she continued to sob and cry. Muyan's heart ached and ached as she cried. At this time, the red energy that bound Luo Yunxiao had yet to disappear. Yao, Qi Zhao's Tian, Muyan's cultivation was naturally unable to contend against the restriction left behind by an immortal venerable Yin Wuji. Yin Tian Xiao Yao Master. Only after Di Mingju has thoroughly dealt with Yin Yuani and made Yin Wuji's power disappear from this part of the world, can Luo Yunxiao's injuries be completely healed. Muyan has no way to relieve Luo Yunxiao's pain, even if she has medical skills. She can only use Qi Yuan to carefully wipe the blood off him, and then sprinkle painkillers. She feels the hot liquid dripping on her body. Chapter 3707. Luo Yunxiao opens her eyes slightly and says weakly, "Don't cry. I'm fine." Qi stops sobbing. Mayan finds that Luo Yunxiao is still looking at her. She is startled to find that she is also crying. She bites her lip and says hoarsely after a long while, "If senior brothers and Xiao Qi saw you suffer like this, their hearts would ache to death." Every time they were in danger, Xiao Shishu would always appear by their side, casually saving them from danger, and then casually leaving. But what about Xiao Shishu? He has suffered so much, endured so much humiliation and injustice. But they don't know anything. They can't do anything for Xiao Shishu. Mayan raises her reddened eyes and looks at Luo Yunxiao. "Xiao Shishu, don't go back to the Netherrealm, okay? Come back to Xiaoyao City with me. My brothers have always missed you. If they see me take you back, they will be very happy." After a pause, she says word by word, "Xiaoyao School is our home. Xiaoyao's 7 sons and Xiao Shishu are indispensable. We already have no master, and we don't want Xiao Shishu to leave us forever one day. Xiao Shishu, Yin Wuji is not your family, but we are. Come home with me, okay?" Luo Yunxiao stares blankly at the pale girl in front of him, whose eyes are brighter than the stars. He only feels that something is slowly rolling in his heart. He can't tell what kind of feeling he has. Warmth, happiness, pain, bitterness, all emotions are intertwined together. He slowly closes his eyes and says to himself in his heart, "That's enough." She treats him as family, as Xiao Shishu. She would weep because of her own pain. That's enough. At least he is not alone. At least he has the Xiaoyao School. That is his home, a home that belongs to him, Luo Yunxiao. He can't help but gently raise the corner of his mouth. His hands hanging by his side gently clench in a fist. "Go see your uncle." Luo Yunxiao closes his eyes and says lightly, "I don't need treatment for the time being. Since he wants to be family, since he has already decided to be her Xiao Shishu, then he must not cross the line. He can't let her find out and worry." It was the only thing he could do for her. Only then did Mayan remember that second maternal uncle Ning Zhongbai was also seriously injured just now. She hurried over to Ningyu and Ning Zhongbai. "Muyan, don't worry," Ningyu hurriedly said. "Father has already felt much better after eating the healing pills you gave him." Mayan breathes a sigh of relief, but she still takes out the Tian Mo Qin. He used Shu Jing Qi Qi Huang to treat Ning Zhongbai's internal injuries. The sound of the guqin dissipated. Ning Yu suddenly asks in a soft voice, Mayan, aren't you and Master Luo a couple? Mu Yin looks at her in surprise. Of course not. Luo Yunxiao is my younger martial uncle. Who is my man? I made it so obvious just now. Can't you tell? The corner of Ning Yu's mouth twitched. All right, everyone saw it just now. Di Ming-ju suddenly appears, holding Mayan in his arms. However, the Ning family, whether it was the half-dead Ning Yu or Ning Zhongbai, were all in a daze. Polar Domain's monarch was actually Mayan's fiancé. Were they really not dreaming? Chapter 3708. Ning Zhongbai's face turns pale when he hears this. He rushes over to cover his daughter's mouth. Don't talk nonsense. How can you make fun of the emperor? Mu Yin can't help but chuckle. Ning Yu is right. You are my uncle, and Di Ming-ju is my future husband. Isn't it natural for him to call you uncle? Ning Zhongbai's lips tremble, dumbfounded. After a long while, he suddenly laughs in a low voice. Looking at Mu Yin, his expression is kind and gentle, full of gratification. If your mother knows that you have found such a good home, she will be very happy. Mu Yan's mind shudders, and she says in a low voice, Second uncle, how is my mother now? What happened that year? Ning Zhongbai looks startled, and his teeth involuntarily bite his lower lip. That year, he hasn't finished his words yet. Mu Yin suddenly hears an old, hoarse voice coming from behind. Yin Xen is not dead yet, but only I can take you to see her. Mu Yin turns around. She sees Ning Kunshin, with a big hole in his stomach, struggling to crawl towards her. His turbid eyes are full of hope. Girl, save me, save my life. Only if I am alive can I take you to see your mother. Only I know how to save your mother. Mu Yin looks at him coldly, not hiding the disgust in her eyes. Where's my mother now? What did you do to her? Ning Kunshin's eyes are filled with tears, and his body is trembling because of the severe pain. I can't hold on any longer. Girl, say me first. Your mother is in the virtual jade reincarnation array. Only I can open that array. If I die, the virtual jade reincarnation array will be destroyed directly, and your mother's soul will fly and scatter. Mu Yin frowns. Ning Zhongbai says, what he said is true. The virtual jade reincarnation array was arranged by him. Other people in the Ning family, including his loyal father, have never been qualified to enter the array. Ning Kunshin's face was full of fear and pleading. Girl, why would I lie to you at a time like this? You have the backing of the Emperor Monarch. I can only live if you want me to live. If you want me to die, the Emperor Monarch only needs to lift a finger to kill me. Even if you cure me now, I will never be a threat to you. In fact, at this moment, Ning Kunshin really didn't have the slightest bit of malice towards Mayan. It's too late for him to regret it now. It's too late for him to repair his relationship with Mayan. How could he lie to her and harm her? Even if he wants to deceive him, in front of Di Ming-ju's absolute force, he's still as fragile as a piece of paper. With a light poke, he'll be pulverized. Ning Zhongbai glanced at Ning Fuxing, whose face was full of wrinkles and who was silently weeping. He couldn't help but show some hesitation on his face. Mayan, can you give the Ning family a way out? After all, they are our blood relatives. Especially Ning Fuxing, who was his biological father. No matter how many heartless things he had done, the shackles of blood could not be removed. How could he watch them die and not save them? Before Mayan could say anything, Ning Yu said angrily in surprise, Father, why are you being soft-hearted again? You think of them as blood relatives, but do they think of you as family? Ning Zhongbai's face was pale. He mumbled for a long time, but couldn't say a word. Chapter 3709. Mu Yin smiles, takes out the Tian Mo Qin, and unhurriedly says, since uncle is pleading for them, then I'll spare their lives. Mu Yin, have you forgotten how they treated you? Ning Yu is simply furious. Her father's soft-heartedness is one thing, but now even Mu Yin is like the Virgin Mary, repaying evil with good. Muyin shows her a smile to calm down and begins to play the Tian Emochin. The sound of the zither is melodious. The injuries of the Ning family members present begin to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fear and despair on their faces are gradually replaced by ecstasy. However, this joy only lasts for a moment and is replaced by screams of horror. What about my cultivation? Why is my cultivation gone? It hurts. Why am I burned by the sun? I'm obviously not afraid of the sun. The Ning family is in a mess. Someone runs to Mu Yin and asks, "What did you do to us? What about our cultivation? Why are we burned by the sun?" Mu Yin sits there, casually plucking the strings. When they're done quarreling, she sneers and says with a teasing face, "I promised Uncle to spare your lives, but I didn't say that the death penalty can be avoided and the punishment can also be spared. Don't you like to hide in the dark and be complacent and scheme against others as fools? Don't you like to attach yourself to others and suck their blood to help your family prosper? Now I'll fulfill your wish. From now on, you can show your darkness, selfishness, and shamelessness in the underground world. You can kill each other, or you can linger at death's door. You can also dream of the Ning family's meteoric rise. But in any case, you can only be like rats in the gutter forever and ever, unable to see the light of day." Mu Yan's gaze falls on Ning Fuxing's face, and the corners of her mouth slowly curve up. "Grandfather, do you like the gift I offered?" Ning Fuxing falls to the ground, his eyes staring straight and his face ashen. After a long while, 2 lines of clear tears fall from the corners of his eyes. The Ning family members are angry and desperate. Someone recklessly rushes over to attack Mu Yan. However, what greeted them was the sharp, long sabers of the Falling Moon tribe. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Ning Zhongbai's face turned pale and his lips trembled. Mu Yan doesn't even spare a glance at the corpse at her feet. Her sharp gaze swept over all the Ning family members present, and she said coldly, "Is there anyone who doesn't want to live and wants to die? You can step out now, and I'll fulfill your wish." Just in time, the long blades of the Falling Moon tribe guarding Mayan's side are unsheathed with a swish. Cold air radiated in all directions. The members of the Ning clan were scared out of their wits. They didn't dare to question anything and ran away in an instant. Ningyu looks at Mu Yan's operation and is simply dumbfounded. Just now, she was afraid that her little cousin would be as soft-hearted as her father and repay evil with kindness. From the looks of it now, it wasn't a woman's benevolence. What a ruthless, merciless, and merciless she-devil. This move of Mu Yan's was really too ruthless. Did she let the Ning family survive? Indeed, he had survived. Moreover, he was still alive and kicking. Even if one used their knees to think, they would know how miserable the future of the Ning family would be. Without cultivation, they couldn't see the light of day. They no longer had the strength to deter anyone, and they couldn't find the resources they wanted. Chapter 37:10. From then on, they could only live sneakily like a rat in a sewer. For the Ning family, who had always been proud and virtuous, this was simply worse than death. Moreover, the Ning family used to act ruthlessly and arbitrarily. Even if they lived like this, they probably wouldn't be able to live for long. Those who couldn't bear the sight of the Ning family, but dared not speak up, would not let go of this opportunity to hit them while they were down. Ningyu felt that she couldn't help but sympathize with the Ning family. Of all people to provoke, they had to provoke Di Jun's fiancé. When a Ning family has run away, Mayan's line of sight turns to Ning Kunshin and Ning Fuxing, who are still in the same place. "Where is my mother?" Ning Fuxing has lost his soul, his face full of tears. Ning Kunshin's complexion turns green and white, staring at Mayan in disbelief. The hatred and resentment in his eyes can't be concealed no matter what. He didn't expect that. Jun Mayan really didn't kill him, but she crippled his cultivation. She also caused the whole Ning family to fall apart, with no possibility of prosperity. This is simply more unbearable than killing Ning Kunshin. His eyes are red, and the muscles on his face keep trembling. Suddenly, He opens his mouth and lets out a sharp laugh. Jun Mayan, you crippled my cultivation and destroyed my Ning family's century-old foundation. You're so vicious and merciless. I will never let you have it easy. Want to find your mother, Ning Yanxin? Ha ha. You will never find her, and even if you find her, you can't save her. Jun Mayan, you are disloyal, unfilial, and utterly devoid of conscience. You can even deal such a murderous hand to your grandfather and ancestors. I curse you to die a horrible death. You and your mother, Ning Yanxin, die together. Ha ha ha. The laughter slowly becomes weak. Ning Kunshin's complexion is pale, and his body slowly falls down. His eyes are still wide open. Black blood slowly flows from the corners of his mouth, and he stops breathing. Old ancestor. The muddle-headed Ning Fuxing sees this scene and suddenly sobers up. He screams and pounces on Ning Kunshin, tears falling like rain. Old ancestor, wake up! Ning Fuxing suddenly raised his head and looked at Mu Yin. The hatred in his eyes was like a sharp knife, wishing that he could tear Mu Yin into pieces. Bastard, are you satisfied? You killed our ancestor and destroyed our Ning family. Are you satisfied now? Jun Mayan, you're really worthy of being a child of the demon race. You're just like your father, sinister and vicious, cruel and heartless. One day, you will all go to hell. Mu Yin coldly looks at the hysterical old man. She doesn't even have the interest to talk nonsense with him. Everyone in the Ning family was like this. Selfish, greedy, paranoid. He would always live in his own world and always have his own set of rules of conduct. It was only right and proper for them to hurt others. If others resisted or retaliated, it would be treason. Talking to such a person would only be a waste of breath. Bang! The enchantment set up by Di Mingju on the side bursts open with a loud noise. Mu Yin immediately turned his head to look, only to see a fire charging, thunder crackling. Di Mingju, dressed in a black robe, slowly walks out from the fireworks and lightning. There isn't a speck of dust on his body. He steps out, and in one step, he's already in front of her. When he looks down, Mu Yan's figure is fully reflected in his ice-blue pupils. It's as if the woman in front of him is already his entire world. Charming enchantress of the city, heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like charming enchantress of the city, heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father, please collect. Chapter 3711. A warm smile slowly bloomed on Mu Yan's face. Ning Kunshin, Ning Fuxing, and the disgusting and shameless Ning family were all thrown to the back of her mind. The polar domain and carefree city were her home. Di Mingju, Xiao Bao, Qi Huang, her fellow apprentice brothers, little martial uncle. These were her family. What did the Ning family count as? Is Yin Yuani dead? Di Mingju frowned unhappily and shook his head. Yin Wuji didn't hesitate to consume his cultivation to open a space barrier passage for him and bring him back. But the corners of his lips slowly curled up, revealing a murderous and gloomy smile. Even if he goes back, he will only be a cripple through and through. Mu Yin, Yin Wuji dotes on this son so much, he should find the best doctor to treat him, right? Di Mingju sneered. Can Ben Jun's Godslayer Thunder Fire be easily treated by an ordinary doctor? Not to mention treatment. Anyone below the venerable immortal level, as long as they touched the Godslayer Thunder Fire, it would be as if they were pierced through by the 9 revolutions' heavenly thunder, and the pain would be unbearable. Yin Wuji wanted to find someone to cure Yin Yuani. Stop dreaming. Knowing that Yin Yuani would live the rest of his life worse than a paralyzed cripple, Mu Yin felt an indescribable comfort in her body and mind. But then she suddenly thought of something and frowned. How many sons does Yin Wuji have? Yin Yuani is crippled. He won't have ideas on little martial uncle, right? No, this kind of biased parents should be struck by lightning. She absolutely could not let little martial uncle go back to be tormented by them. The blue veins on Di Mingju's forehead throbbed, and his face immediately turned as black as the bottom of a pot. When fighting with Wuji just now, he noticed that Mu Yin was very careful when taking care of Luo Yinxiao. This heartless woman, she didn't even shed a few tears for him. She was actually so distressed for Luo Yinxiao. The jealousy in Jun Shangdaren's heart was overturning the seas. But on the surface, he still said indifferently, the polar domain and the nether domain have been at odds for so long, and both sides have pretty much figured out each other's ins and outs. But I've never heard that Wuji has a son like Luo Yinxiao. It's clear that Wuji has never thought of letting Luo Yinxiao become the successor of the Nether Realm. Hearing this, Mu Yin breathed a sigh of relief. Then she couldn't help but feel unhappy. Wuji, that old dog, has no taste. My youngest martial uncle, Gao Shan Jingxing, is talented and good-looking. How is he not as good as that idiot Yuani? He didn't cultivate youngest martial uncle and treated him as an invisible person. Instead, he supported a piece of trash like Yuani. Diming Ju is finally at the end of his patience. He clasps her waist and fiercely presses her into his arms. Mountain scenery, beauty and talent. Your evaluation of Luo Yinxiao is very high. Mayan stares blankly. Seeing the man's gloomy expression that could drip water, she can't help but burst into laughter. Diming Ju, you're really jealous of everyone, ah? In my heart, youngest martial uncle is equivalent to my master. Seeing master injured, shouldn't I be concerned? She felt that she had enough desire to survive. He even used the phrase, high mountain scenery, which was obviously used to describe the elderly. I didn't expect Jun Shangdaren to actually be jealous. Chapter 37:12. Mayan's eyes widen little by little. You mean Xiao Shu is going to marry the demon princess? This news is really explosive. Why didn't Xiao Shu tell them that he already has a fiancé? Mayan thinks of the expressions of her fellow apprentices after she tells them this news, and she can't help but smile. Xiao Qi said before that he and Xiao Shu were the only single dogs left. Now it seems that Xiao Qi has always been the only single dog. She also inexplicably feels relieved in her heart. Just now, in the battle with Yuani, Xiao Shu desperately stood in front of her, even disregarding his own life. There's a vague idea in Mayan's heart that takes root and sprouts, as if it will break through the soil. Xiao Shu is too good to her. From a long time ago, he would always appear in her most dangerous moments. He clearly doesn't want to have too much involvement with others, but because of her request, he was even willing to stand for Laozi's #1 shop in the world. Again and again, he shows a gentle and focused expression, but when she looks over, it always changes back to indifference. And when she was tortured by the dark holy flame, he held her in a trembling and careful embrace. At that time, there was a voice in her ear that kept telling her, Luo Yinxiao treats her differently. No martial uncle could do this for his nephew. She doesn't want to lose any of her relatives in the Xiaoyao sect. But in her heart, Xiao Shu is just Xiao Shu. He's her teacher, a close relative who is like a brother and a father to her, a person she can risk her life to protect. But there's not a trace of love between a man and a woman. The battlefield is hanging by a thread, and the danger is like a pile of eggs. Mayan forcibly suppresses these thoughts, forcing herself not to think about it. But she also knows that she can't escape forever. But at this moment, those irritations and worries disappear in an instant because of Dimingju's words. She's so stupid. Why does she always like to think that she's in love? She can risk her life to protect Xiao Shu, so why can't he protect her? What's more, Xiao Shu looks cold on the outside, but he also silently protects the other people of the Xiaoyao sect. Mayan's eyebrows are curved, and her smile is indescribably bright and brilliant. She grabs Dimingju and asks, Have you seen the demon princess? Are they good-looking? Are they gentle and docile? Are they good enough for my junior martial uncle, who is unmatched in the world? Jun Shangdaren almost fell out with these direct questions. Mu Yin didn't seem to notice. Oh, and most importantly, Would the demon race's princess be willing to marry into the Xiaoyao sect? In the face of Di-Ming Ju's sinister gaze, a trace of craftiness flashes through the young girl's eyes. She says with a beaming smile, Di-Ming Ju, our Xiaoyao school has an unwritten rule. Whether the children of the school marry, they can only be recruited into the school. They can never be married out. So what if she was a demon princess? If the princess of the demon clan wants to marry my martial uncle, she has to follow the rules of the carefree school. What do you think? Junshang Darren. Hearing this, Star Wolf's eyes widened. So, if Junshang wanted to marry Miss June, he could only marry into the Xiaoyao sect. What a joke. Their Junshang was the dignified emperor of the polar domain, the #1 expert of the Xiuxin continent. How many women cried and yelled to marry into the polar domain? How could Junshang possibly marry into the family of Small before he could finish thinking about it? Star Wolf hears his Junshang's indifferent and cold voice, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Chapter 37:13. Ben Jun can marry into the Xiaoyao sect today. Yin Yin, will you marry Ben Jun today? How about we consummate our marriage tonight? Ben Jun hasn't tried the bed of the Xiaoyao sect yet. Mu Yin, flirting with him instead of getting flirted with. So annoying. On the side, Xinglang's mouth twitches fiercely, wishing he could cover his eyes. No, this isn't his aloof, arrogant, unparalleled Junshang. Absolutely not. He just had an auditory hallucination. That's right. It must be an auditory hallucination. After Yin Yuani disappears, the seal that Yin Wuji left on Luo Yunxiao is lifted. Without the obstruction of the seal, Mu Yan's Shun musician skill, art of yellow qi, immediately plays its role. Soon, her battered body recovers. Her badly mutilated face also becomes incomparably handsome. Mu Yan looks at the handsome face of her little martial uncle, and she can't help but sigh. It would be a pity if such a peerless man was disfigured. Luo Yunxiao's ears are a little hot from her unblinking gaze. After enduring for a while, she finally couldn't help but say coldly, "What are you looking at me for?" Hee. Mu Yan shows a sly smile. "Little martial uncle, be honest, do you have a fiancé?" Luo Yunxiao stares blankly, subconsciously looking up to meet her eyes. Mu Yan has an expression that says, "Don't pretend anymore. I know everything. Di-Ming Ju told me. The demon princess and you are engaged. Is it true?" Luo Yunxiao subconsciously clenches her left hand. There have been several heartfelt imprints there. It was his betrothal, his fetters, his hopeless love and hope. Mu Yan's expression becomes serious, and she cautiously says, "Little martial uncle, isn't this engagement voluntary? You don't like the demon princess? Could it be that little martial uncle was forced by the demon lord? How can this be tolerated? How can the people of the Xiaoyao sect be bullied by others, even forced to marry? What's more, the one being bullied is little martial uncle. What's wrong with the demon princess? If the demon princess dares to threaten their little martial uncle, then she must be killed. At worst, they could just go to the demon race's headquarters and kidnap the bride." Mu Yan is already secretly imagining how little martial uncle is being bullied by the unscrupulous demon lord and forced into prostitution. The scene. However, Luo Yunxiao suddenly said in a hoarse voice, "I volunteered." Mine's train of thought pauses, and when she raises her head to meet Luo Yunxiao's face, she can't help but stare blankly. She had never seen youngest martial uncle with such an expression. It was as if he was swearing an oath, but also as if he was venting the deepest secrets and desires in his heart. Word by word, he repeated what he had just said. "This engagement is of my own free will. I have no regrets in this life." Even if he knew it was just an illusion, even if he spurned his own greed and cowardice. No matter how deep one's hope was, the more despair one would feel when the pain came in the future. However, he still gladly endured it and had no regrets in this life. Mayan stares blankly for a good while. Then a brilliant smile blooms on her face. It seemed like Junior Martial Uncle really liked the demon princess. There was no blind marriage, no forced marriage, no forced prostitution. That's really great. Mayan happily says, "Little Marshall uncle, it's really great that you could be together with the person you like." She hopes that everyone in the Xiao Yao sect can get what they want and grow old together with their loved ones. Di Mingju's low and cold voice comes from behind. Mayan promptly puts away the Tian and Mochin and returns to Di Mingju's side. Chapter 37:14. Muyin quickly puts away the Tian and Mochin and returns to Di Mingju's side. She doesn't see that behind her, Luo Yunxiao is staring at the girl's departing back, and then he lowers his eyes. The corners of his mouth hooks up into a gentle smile. He says to himself in his heart, "So what if I can't be with the person I like? So what if I can't get what I want?" As long as he can see her happiness from afar and see her smile brightly, it's enough. Although Ning Fuxing is stubbornly refusing to say the location of Ning Yanxin, but Muyin can roughly guess. That is the Ning family's forbidden area, Liua Pond. However, even if they know the location, they can't do anything about it, because they can't get in. Not to mention Muyin, even Luo Yunxiao has never seen the great array that wraps around Liua Pond. It should be the virtual jade reincarnation array that Ning Kunshan mentioned. Muyin uses the Shun musician skill, Star Curtain, to check the entire array, but she can't find any flaws or entrances. With Di Mingju's cultivation, it's naturally easy to break this array by force. But the problem is that once the array is forcibly destroyed, Ning Yanxin, who is inside, is likely to perish along with it. Muyin grabs Ning Fuxing's collar and coldly says, "Speak. How can we break this virtual jade reincarnation array?" Ning Fuxing's eyes are cold and resentful as he stares at her, a sinister smile on his face. "There's no way. Didn't the old ancestor say that the life gate of the virtual jade reincarnation array is connected to his heart? Once the old ancestor dies, the life gate of the virtual jade reincarnation array will also close." Ha ha! Your mother can only be trapped in the virtual jade reincarnation array for the rest of her life, unable to live or die. All of this is because of you, an unfilial daughter. Muyin's face turns white with anger. The hand that grabs his collar turns around and clasps his neck, suddenly squeezing tightly. "Ning Fuxing, isn't my mother your own daughter? Even a vicious tiger eats its cubs. How can you be so cruel and merciless to your own daughter? Are you still human? No, your Ning family is worse than beasts." Ning Fuxing's face instantly turned red. There was a bit of fear in his eyes, but there was even more anger and resentment. As members of the Ning family, isn't it natural for you to sacrifice for the glory and survival of the Ning family? I loved Yin Xian so much and gave her whatever she wanted, but what about her? Betraying the Ning family for a man. Why do you all have to be so selfish? You only think about your own love, hate, life, and death, and not think about the rise and fall of the Ning family. Without the Ning family, where would you come from? Muyin takes a deep breath, her eyes surging with killing intent. Her fingers were about to exert force when Ning Zhongbai suddenly broke through and grabbed her arm, his voice trembling. "Mayan, he's your grandfather. He's my father. Please don't kill him, I beg you. Say something." Ning Yu's expression was so cold that it could drip water. "Father, you treat me as your father, but I don't treat you as my son. Have you forgotten how he attacked you just now? Why do you still care about this kind of person's life and death? But Mayan, he's your blood relative after all. If you want to kill him, don't dirty your hands, lest you get infected with evil karma." Ning Yu rebuked Ning Zhongbai until he couldn't say a word, but he had lived in the Ning family for so many years. Chapter 37:15. When Ning Fuxing didn't involve the family's interests or Ning Kunshan, he was a kind and strict father. He didn't care about the life and death of other people in the Ning family. But how could he just watch Ning Fuxing die? Father, I beg you, open the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Array, okay?" Ning Zhongbai knelt in front of Ning Fuxing, crying with tears streaming down his face. Hasn't my little sister suffered enough in these 20 years? Don't you feel the slightest pity and heartache for her? She's your most beloved daughter. Ning Fuxing's eyes flashed, and his face showed some emotion. Ning Zhongbai shed tears and looked at Mu Yin imploringly. Mu Yin pursed her lips and finally let go of Ning Fuxing. Ning Zhongbai knelt in front of Ning Fuxing and choked with sobs. Father, do you remember? My sister liked to make clothes and shoes for you the most. The inner clothes you wear now were all made by her 20 years ago. She would make dozens of sets every month. Even if you said it was too much and she didn't need to continue, she still wouldn't listen. Because she knew at that time that she would become the Ning family's next sacrifice. At this point, Ning Zhongbai couldn't hold back the surging tears in his eyes. He sobbed and choked. My sister already knew. She actually knew everything. I still remember that my sister was very lively and innocent when she was young, but after the age of 10, she suddenly became taciturn and alienated from others. That's because she heard the conversation between you and old ancestor and knew that one day she would become the Ning family sacrifice. She alienated from everyone and was alone because she was afraid that father and brother would be sad for her when she became a sacrifice. She didn't dare to love, and she didn't dare to be loved, because she couldn't face the separation of life and death that would come one day. My sister was ready to sacrifice herself for the Ning family. Even when she got together with Jun Shiyuan, she never thought of staying with him forever. It was the Ning family. It was the Ning family that was too cruel and merciless. They wanted to kill Jun Shiyuan and take away his treasures, so my sister couldn't bear it and resisted. Ning Fuxing listened in a daze, his expression absent-minded. Hearing this, he suddenly said sternly, Jun Shiyuan is a devil cultivator, a great devil that everyone has the right to kill. What's wrong with us plotting to kill him? How could Yin Xin resist me, her father, for a devil? Mayan grinds her molars together, her hands itching to kill again. Did the Ning family really treat shamelessness as a tradition? Di Mingju embraces her in his arms, faintly saying, if you can't do it, Bin Jun will have someone deal with it. Mu Yin takes a deep breath and shakes her head. Forget it. She only had one uncle. There was no need to make him sad. In any case, Ning Fuxing's cultivation was crippled and he would die sooner or later. Ning Zhongbai didn't argue with Ning Fuxing, but continued to speak mournfully. But in the end, Yin'er still chose to stay in the Ning family to become a sacrifice, didn't she? Father, now that the Ning family has become like this, the existence of the Jade virtual reincarnation formation has become meaningless. Are you really unwilling to release my sister and let her see the light of day again? Ning Fuxing looks foolishly at the dense fog in front of him, and then glances at Mayan. The expression on his face kept changing. Father, I'm begging you, even if my sister was in the wrong, wasn't it enough for her to suffer so many years of torture? Chapter 37:16. Listening to Ning Zhongbai's crying. Ning Fuxing finally closed his eyes and said hoarsely, there is indeed a way to open the life gate of the Jade virtual reincarnation formation. Ning Zhongbai's eyes lit up. What is it? Ning Fuxing stared at the stone tablet engraved with the words Liu Miao Pool and said slowly, the Jade virtual reincarnation formation was created by my grandfather, Ning Xianting. In his body, there is the tear of the ghost from the witch Nikang. By using himself as a sacrifice to experience the reincarnation tribulation in the Jade virtual reincarnation formation, he can provide endless vitality and blessings to the bloodline of the Ning family. But the tribulation of reincarnation is extremely painful. No matter how strong-willed one is, there's no way to endure it for too long. Therefore, the Jade virtual reincarnation formation will pass the power of the tear of the ghost to the next bloodline of the Ning family through the blood pattern bell. The blood pattern bell is born from the Jade virtual reincarnation formation. It has its own consciousness and will choose the corresponding bloodline of the Ning family. Who will be the next sacrifice is not decided by us, but by the blood pattern bell or the jade virtual reincarnation formation. As he said, he suddenly turned his head and looked at Mu Yin with malicious eyes. The life gate of the jade virtual reincarnation formation disappears, and others can't go in. But the next sacrifice will be accepted by the jade virtual reincarnation formation. However, only the sacrifice can go in. Do you dare? Ning Zhongbai trembled all over, and his face was as pale as gold paper. He kept murmuring, "How could it be? Is the next sacrifice really Mu Yin? Why are you so cruel to my little sister?" Ning Fuxing showed a sarcastic smile to Mu Yin. "I have told you the way to save your mother. Now, let's see if you have the guts to do it. Once you're captured by the jade virtual reincarnation formation, you'll be in a state where you can neither live nor die. You can't escape until your soul is scattered." Mu Yin looked at him coldly. "It turns out that you also know what kind of pain your daughter is suffering in there. Do you want to have a taste of the same pain as her?" After that, she didn't look at Ning Fuxing again, but turned around and walked towards the stone tablet of the Liu Miao pool. "Yin Yin." Di Ming Ju grabs hold of her, unable to hide the worry in his eyes. Mayan smiles at him. "Di Ming Ju, believe me, nothing will happen to me." Ning Fuxing sneered. Back then, Jun Xuan, the devil, also walked into the jade virtual reincarnation formation confidently. What was the result? Now, there might not even be any bones left. At the side, Star Wolf could not bear it any longer. He raised his leg and fiercely kicked him in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. Meeting Ning Fuxing's furious gaze, Xing Lang sneered coldly. "You are Miss Jun's grandfather. I can't kill you, but I have at least 100 ways to make you beg for death. Do you want to give it a try?" Ning Fuxing did not dare to speak again. However, his eyes shone with malevolence and hatred. He's waiting to hear Jun Mayan's terrified scream, waiting to see Di Mingju's pained and regretful expression. As long as it was a sacrifice that entered the jade virtual reincarnation formation, no one could come out alive. At this time, Mu Yin had already arrived in front of the flowing noxious pond stone tablet. She didn't need Ning Fuxing's explanation to know that this was the location that connected to the heart of the formation. Mu Yin lifted the blood vein bell on her waist and placed it on the stone tablet. Chapter 37:17. In the next moment, he felt the thick fog in front of him surge violently, as though it was being curled up by a gale. Gradually, a vortex formed in the center of the white mist. A huge suction force came over, as if an invisible hand had stretched out, wanting to pull Mayan directly into the thick fog. Star Wolf cursed in a low voice. "What energy fluctuation is this? How could there be such an evil formation on the floating island?" He had been waiting for this from the start, but now he found that he couldn't even get close to the vortex in the white fog. The smile on Ning Fuxing's face became more and more excited. However, before he could be proud of himself for long, the smile on his face froze. This was because he saw that the handsome young man had unknowingly thrown out a disc array. White light flickered and enveloped the entire fog. The vortex that had grabbed Mu Yin and was about to swallow her was actually imprisoned by the energy lines that extended from the array disc. A passage appeared in the white mist. Then, he was unable to close it, nor was he able to grab mine inside. Mu Yin took back the blood vein bell, clapped her hands, and gave Luo Yunxiao a thumbs up. Junior Master's attainments in arrays are getting stronger and stronger. Luo Yunxiao's brows are indifferent. She doesn't respond to mine. He only looked at Di Mingju and said, "You accompany her inside, I will stand guard outside." Ning Fuxing's eyes were full of horror as he looked at Mu Yin and the others in disbelief. "Impossible. Why weren't you swallowed by the jade virtual reincarnation formation?" Mu Yin looks at him mockingly. "There's no gap. There's no way to break a great array without any flaws. But if the jade virtual reincarnation formation wants to catch me as a sacrifice, there will naturally be a flaw. Once there was a flaw, be it her or little Uncle Master, it would only be a matter of minutes for them to break the formation. It was just that she chose to be the sacrifice, and youngest martial uncle just cooperated with her to break the formation. Ning Fu was so angry that his whole body was trembling, but he was suddenly kicked into the misty passageway. Don't you want to see with your own eyes how your own daughter sacrifices herself for the Ning family? My dear grandfather. On the first day, she entered the Ning family. Mayan had a dream. She dreamed of a blue pool, blue buds in the pond. There was still that pair of bloody eyes in the flower bud. However, she never expected that. At this moment, in the Jade virtual reincarnation formation, everything that happened in her dream reappeared. The ice-cold hand suddenly grabs Di Mingju's hand, and her body snuggles up tightly in his embrace, as if she wants to draw strength from him. Di Mingju hugs her tightly, his voice carrying an unconcealable worry. Yin Yan, what's wrong? Mayan's gaze is unblinkingly fixed on the blue flower buds floating in the pond in front of her. Her clothes were soaked in cold sweat. She now knew what the bloody eyes she saw in her dream were. It was her mother. But why did her mother's face have no eyelids, no nose, and no bones? Only that pair of terrifying eyes? Di Mingju touches her ice-cold face with a distressed expression. He suddenly grabs her waist, and the two of them soar into the air, floating in front of the blue bud. Divine power slowly poured into the blue flower bud. The flower bud swayed, as if it was about to shatter. Di Mingju is so scared that he promptly withdraws his divine power and pretends that he didn't do anything. Perhaps it's his mother-in-law inside. If he kills her, his road to marrying Mayan will be far away in the indefinite future. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.